Okay, good afternoon everyone, and a very warm welcome to AICET's Learning Journey. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Bernice Loon, and I'm an EdTech development specialist here at AICET. Together with my colleagues, we worked with educators and project teams to design AI-enabled learning experiences that are grounded in pedagogy, classroom realities, and meaningful learning outcomes. The focus of today's session is captured in our theme of Educators as Designers, Creating AI-Powered Learning Experiences. This matters because AI in education should not merely be about the tool. Instead, it should begin with the learning problem. And this is why at AICET we focus on putting pedagogy first. AI should not be a shortcut around learning. When educators intentionally design the learning experience around it, it can help create structured opportunities for practice, feedback, reflection, and deeper thinking. So today's program brings together a range of practical examples of AI in teaching and learning. As you listen to the sharings, I invite all of us to look beyond what each tool can do and pay attention to the design choices behind it. Now, before we begin, just a quick admin. Please take note of the emergency exits located at the front as well as the back of the venue. So in the event of an emergency, please calmly proceed to the nearest exit. Now with that, let us begin today's program. We are honored to welcome Mr. Chia Hai Xiang, Principal Specialist at MOE's Educational Technology Division. His sharing today, titled SLS as a National Learning System, What's Still Worth Building in EdTech, will help us step back from individual tools and ask a bigger question. As AI becomes more powerful and accessible, what should a national learning system protect, enable, and intentionally design for? This is especially important for today's theme of educators as designers, because good AI-enabled learning does not happen simply by giving students access to technology. It requires a thoughtful system design, strong pedagogy, and careful decisions about where to support learners and where to preserve the productive struggle that learning requires. Now, please join me in welcoming Mr. Chia Hai Xiang for the opening address.
All right, thank you very much. Happy to be here. This is attended quite a number of these learning journeys, right? Okay, and so today I sort of wondered what I was going to share that is very aligned to what I previously shared at previous learning journeys, but also to give you a broader perspective because of some of the maturation of some of the technologies that's out there, the broader EdTech ecosystem. So I landed on this particular topic. I have about 11 slides, so I will have to move quite fast, about 2 minutes per slide. And the slides are a little dense, right? Okay, so forgive me first, right? So let me start by talking about how, I guess, in some sense, SLS is a little bit different from many of the apps that you encounter outside, right? Okay, and its position as a national learning system. So as part of our work, it is not just about studying, what is the broader EdTech ecosystem out there together with commercial apps and government-created applications, but really thinking about how, as a national learning system, at least for the K-12, how it should, SLS should evolve, and also what other countries are actually doing, right? So this particular graph gives you a sense of where we are. We're probably third in this place, right? Okay, and it's in some sense progressing, right? Okay, from left to right. You don't have to go through all the stages, but we've actually gone through at least the first stage. This is pre-SLS, jumping to probably our third stage without really going through that second Estonian kind of stage. But we are quite far away from where I think some of the top countries, like for example China, is already, right? So in case you don't know, China has a national kind of learning system that basically involves vocational tertiary adult education together with K-12 education, all married together into a single system effectively, right? Even though, of course, there are different parts of that system. And you can see how they are moving, even though if you look carefully at some of their write-ups and things like that, they don't actually go deeply into some of these details, but you can see the general kind of agenda or general direction. So we have some struggles in reaching there, partly because we are a democratic country. So in a sense, right, everybody has their own vision, right, okay, where to go, right, okay, but I think if you understand how, some of these things can come together, right, and where the future is specifically, I think with regards to this idea of this intelligence layer, right, okay, that is afforded by AI, Gen AI as one of the AI tools that we have, you really want to see going forward this particular kind of ecosystem, right? And I'll talk a little bit about what is part of this, and then also, where I think many of the commercial applications and where some of you guys are building stuff and things like that can actually function, right? Again, that space that is on the side here, okay? But before I go there, all right, between the difference between national system and educational applications is one of the things that we're talking about, but probably not the main thing. I had the assumption, I think about 3 years ago when I started or 2 years ago when I started talking at Learning Journeys, that most people that are here and building educational apps understood what is the difference between an EdTech app application and what is a normal product application or commercial application that you do other things for. I would like to call them productivity applications. But actually, I don't think so. I think even to today, when you talk about pedagogical soundness, a lot of it is sound bites, right? Nobody really truly understands what does it mean to have a pedagogical layer, and why does an EdTech tool require a pedagogical layer. And so, just to present it a little bit clearer, right? Okay, commercial apps that are basically for productivity, usefulness, ease of use. I think most of you know, right? If you've done any kind of product management. For responsible design, of course, you need to add other things, right? Ethical risks like data privacy, undesirable content, user agency, especially when you're dealing with children, right? K-12 or even, for example, tertiary education, you have a responsibility, right? Okay, as a good app to have that. But EdTech design goes beyond this, right? We mitigate not just ethical risk, but also cognitive risk. And this is very, very clear when generative AI comes on board, when there's this risk of cognitive offloading, right? Okay, that we also need to mitigate cognitive risk. And this comes about even before AI. When we want to build any EdTech layer, you actually have to mitigate against that, right? Otherwise, there is no learning. And the purpose of EdTech is really to introduce learning. Now, I want you to pay attention to this thing, right? What is the pedagogical layer? Is actually the deliberate frictions and guardrails introduced in the learning process so that students can engage in productive struggle necessary for learning. A lot of you might understand this theoretically, but if you think about it, if you are a product manager elsewhere or a product designer elsewhere, your objective is to try to remove all friction, right? Ease of use is high. You want to ask the people, if let's say for your users, right, where's the friction points, right? Let me go and remove it. So what does it mean to deliberately introduce friction and guardrails? That requires learning user design, right? Or that is very different from product design, right? Okay, it's in fact opposite to it, right? Where do I intentionally, and how do I intentionally, and why do I intentionally introduce and how much friction there should be to introduce, right? So that's a struggle, I think, for many teams that are structured in order to do normal product design, but actually maybe just have a few invited educators to come and talk to you, and they might not talk to you the same language. I'm trying to talk to you the same language to tell you the friction that you're trying to design out of the system is exactly the friction that you need to introduce into some of the learning processes. So deciding what that kind of friction is. So is your team set up today to be able to do this? All right. I want to share this also very important point, right? There is plenty of empirical evidence that we have done local studies, results of which will come out in August and September. We're actually asking the users not about friction, but asking about them which contents do you find the most useful for your own learning is negatively correlated to actual learning outcomes. So content that they find that is actually, they think is the most useful for them is usually the least useful for them. Why? Very simple. Cognitive load theory, right? Nobody likes cognitive struggle. But actually, the more cognitive struggle there is, the more learning actually takes place. But they don't like it. Consistently, over and over again, if you ask the students, not, which one you prefer, which one you like, whatever, which content do you think gives you the most benefit, most helpful for your learning, they are still unable to answer that question. All right? And I would say that we haven't done tests for this, but I would say that most teachers are also unable to answer that question. Right? So that means that basically you need to set up something that really, or some experts that really understand what is meant by sound pedagogy. Okay, and what complicates it further is that, of course, good pedagogy is very difficult. It is not just a matter of, what's the task, what's the content, the LO that you want you want the students to achieve, and then basically a single dimension, and I'll match that against that. Right? So I have a single matrix to measure mastery, and that's it. All right, okay, so I've identified 3 main areas that we actually look very carefully, and this is actually inscribed in our Singapore teaching practice. You need to understand not just that basically the subject matter and goals, which many people focus on, right, what you're trying to teach the kids. You need to understand what is the students and the learning, right, where they are, the precise positions where the student is, and of course students have got multiple dimensions. It's not just cognitive dimensions that you have to worry about. You need to worry about their affective, their social, their ethical dimensions. You need to worry about short-term versus long-term, right? Many evidence of short-term success, performance, achievement outcomes that do not translate to long-term achievement outcomes are in fact negative for long-term achievement outcomes. Then you need to understand how then to achieve this, whether it is what kind of instructional tasks do you put in place for the student to productively struggle so that they can learn? So these 3 dimensions operate together, and you not only asking for a singular task, right, okay, to pedagogical tasks to put in front of the students. You are thinking of a trajectory of learning, which means that from moment to moment, I have to choose the most appropriate task across the entire spectrum, universe of possible pedagogical tasks to put in front of the student so that they are most efficient in their learning. So there's a tracking of this, moving to the next specific pedagogical task, and eventually you will create a personalized kind of pathway for each individual student based on their need, right? So in simple terms, this is actually what we are trying to do when we say we build this pedagogical layer, right? An intelligent pedagogical layer that can do this. Now, what complicates this even more, right? And this is where the discussion comes with regards to a lot of times people say what we do in K-12 is very different from what we should be doing in university. What we should be doing in self-instruction or self-study, regulated self-study is very different from teacher instruction. Actually, they are the same. They're just called differently. Pedagogical layer can come in any of these 3 ways, right? Okay, one, is an educator that is in front of you directing your pedagogical task or presenting that pedagogical task. 2, there is a system that presents or recommends this particular pedagogical task in front of you. And the third thing is a self-regulated task. That means, as part of my good learning, I decide for myself what kind of pedagogical task. So simple things like, when I revise something that time, I use my hand to go and cover the keyword so that I can try to remember. That is a pedagogical task, right? That is done by myself because I know this is my best way of learning. Self-regulation is also the same as pedagogical layer. So I give you to those people who still don't understand why this is deliberate friction. If you ask a student, what is the most productive way, what's the least amount of friction that I want you when you build this? Actually, most students will tell you, just give me the answer lah. Right? But we build deliberate friction because this is the learning intent that we want to create, right? So in that sense, right, I need to build this deliberate friction. And this deliberate friction can be manifested through any of these 3 ways, and usually it's a combination of these 3 ways. And depending on the profile of students, especially students who are older, maybe they can do their own self-regulation, therefore they function very well, even without system
regulation. So say, for example, I use ChatGPT out of the box without some kind of pedagogical coaching layer. I'm still very functional, maybe as a learner, because I've got that self-regulation to know how to prompt the thing properly, right? Because I have that learning intent in mind. But you compare that to maybe a primary 5 student or primary 4 student who has not learned that level of metacognition, all right? And maybe exposed to a teacher who unable to truly understand this, right? Or maybe monitor this moment to moment. You are going to make sure that your EdTech tool, your system, regulation is actually well structured, and you cannot probably use an EdTech tool, LLM out of the box without the proper pedagogical layer. Okay, so hopefully that explains a little bit across the board what. Okay, sorry, again a very complex thing, but I just want to move on. All right, okay, what are some of the future learning systems and where we see actually some of these things going on? So on the left, right, definitely we want to potentially have a national learning system that is a lot more open, right? Today, all right, there are individual workflows that teachers have, maybe even students have. They will have personal intelligence. They will have external data that they can see, right? We want them to be able to interact with our intelligence layer, right? So that's part of what we want to build, right? How do we actually create this adaptive, shared human system intelligence that grows over time, right, depending on best practices that we can see, right, based on proper, good teaching and learning metrics, right, okay, that we can actually identify. And how do we then let teachers have their own kind of personal intelligence that they can actually build separately? And how do we actually bring that together to interact? And, you know, I will talk a little bit about these independent apps because many of you guys will probably in that space, whether you're teachers or developers or here, that are thinking or already building individual apps, right? So I will talk a little bit about that. Okay, so what if you are interested in building good EdTech tools, right? You have to understand first and foremost, are you building a national or maybe a system, right, okay, that you are thinking of? Most of you probably aren't, right? Unless, of course, you join government, right, which is a pitch for you to join government. Please join government. Right, okay? So, but if you can't and you're not, then you can focus, right? I want to highlight this, right? There are many pedagogical problems that we are not going to solve, all right? It's not about getting, you know, the biggest span that we can. There are many pedagogical problems that, and I'll talk a little bit about some of these pedagogical problems that we cannot solve. But, you know, in order to make sure that it is really an EdTech tool rather than just a product, right? Just any other product. Ask yourself all these questions, right? Do you have a pedagogical layer? What are your processes to ensure that this pedagogical layer is sound? What are the metrics that you have built in? What are the experts that you have actually brought in, right? Most importantly, do you know what your app can do and what your app can't do? And have you got a process to introduce that to your users so that basically your purpose is not about increasing user engagement, the total number of users, the total number of use cases, but truly about improving learning. Because if you say that you're truly about improving learning, there is something that your app, for someone that your app can do the best work for. But anything else probably cannot function as well compared to the other apps there or other systems that are out there. Know when to hand it off. Be very clear. This is my focus area. This is what I'm catered for doing. And then I built ways in which you can move in from other systems and move out into other systems. If that is truly your interest, right? Which is to actually improve learning. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that even though there is a whole world of pedagogical problems that need to be solved, the hardest problems are not being solved. Why? Because it's difficult work. If you look at the app that basically are coming out that maybe gets Straits Times coverage or gets the new coverage and things like that, they're all the same. They all think that basically they will be the next either homework maker or, you know, marking app or whatever, right? But actually there are very fundamental, difficult questions that we haven't been solved. All right, Tamil transcription. Definitely, I will ask you right now. Multimodal sensing to be able to do marking of student artifacts. All right? Things like maybe special needs, for example, catering to special needs. Right? There is a Singapore company base company that we work with that deals with being able to recognize Singapore Sign Language. It's a difficult task, and these are all pedagogical goals, right? So since you're here, if you guys haven't started on something, let me encourage you to go and tackle difficult problems, right? It's the same thing that I tell teachers who joined me last time round when I was VP at Northlight. You want to teach easy and go many places. You want to teach difficult kids that almost nobody wants to kind of teach, that needs you the most, go and do a difficult task, right? And join Northlight. Okay, so that is something that basically you can think about, yeah? And then what do we do to establish what we know about good learning? Not, like I said already, if we don't have the metrics to say, ask the students, ask the teachers, what is the most helpful for you? Then we need to establish proper metrics of learning. Pre, post, statistically significant improvements based on very specific interventions, A/B testing, RCTs, that basically will prove to you whether or not introducing this particular feature or not introducing this feature actually improves outcomes for who, for which specific groups of students. So some of the work that we are doing, and I'm heading now, right, MOE's rapid research and some of the studies, you can actually look for it on the website. Okay, all right, so conclusion, I will leave any other questions later on to the panel. Basically, I just want to say, number one, building an EdTech product EdTech national learning system differs quite a bit from building other EdTech products, and building an EdTech product differs very differently from building other products. You cannot set up a team and processes to do the same thing, right? If fundamentally you are interested in good learning. Number two, right? Okay, so that's part of the thing, right? National level product. What else do we have to handle, right? We have to be holistic. We have to handle this full range of instructional tasks and things like that, which if you are building a singular app, not a problem, but just know when to hand off. What you cannot do well, hand off to somebody else. What you can do well, explain why you can do well. Prove that you can do it better than anybody else, okay? Now the last one, right? Developers who are interested in doing good and future-proof EdTech products, please solve difficult problems. Right? Don't look at the problem outside and say, oh yeah, the teacher tell me got this problem. Right? But actually, many other apps can solve. Right? And don't forgetting these apps are all improving. Right? But there are other people who are maybe not so vocal that have very difficult problems that you might want to tackle. And of course, doing that creates a mood for yourself, really sharpens your work, and actually has meaningful impact, right? Okay, for the stuff that you do. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hai Xiang, for setting the stage so thoughtfully and giving us a deeper understanding of SLS as a national learning system, and also motivating us to tackle difficult problems to find a market that has yet to be met. All right, so to start our sharing from the different individuals, let's first introduce our first presenter, Associate Professor Don Koh from the National University of Singapore. Prof. Don will explore how AI is reshaping creativity through his direct, generate, and select framework, and showing how AI can expand creative possibilities while human judgment remains central in deciding what truly matters. Now please join me in welcoming Prof. Don Koh.
Thanks. I always say it's great to be speaking to educators, but first I have to find my pointer. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I've spent several years trying to pit AI creativity against human creativity, because this is what I teach, right? And that is kind of almost like, are you going to eat my bread and butter, or are we going to be able to use you to do better, right? So this is the experiments we've been doing. Now, and I have some not very good news to share, right? A couple of not very good news. Now, but before I jump into good news, right, I want to define a little bit how I see it so that there's a frame of understanding. Creativity, for me at least, is actually a learnable set of exploratory behaviors, right? It's not really so magical. In fact, they are sometimes often mechanistic if you understand how to, systematically deploy it. Not the elusive magic that we sometimes associate it with. And therefore, or rather, right, this creativity, it's to serve one outcome, is to get results that are different and better. Okay, so this is how I see it, the frame of understanding, okay? Now, if you see creativity as magic, then you might disagree with what I say later on. Okay, so bad news number one is if you're worried about, losing jobs, or if you are worried as a creative practitioner, then I would say that from our observations over time, AI is actually getting pretty good at many of the mechanistic steps involved in creative behavior, even if we thought it couldn't do it in the first place, okay? Because I keep checking, it gets better and better, okay? Now, maybe it's because I keep checking and try to use it in a way, it also learns the ways we are doing it. It's not definitely for me, but from the large range of creatives who try to do this. So, this is what we observe. Second bad news is, if you're actually hoping not to work anymore and have AI take over everything, right? It's not exactly quite the same as human beings when it comes to judging what's meaningful. And let's define meaningful a little bit. Meaningful is not like, all feely-goody, about things that we want to do. Just things that are relevant to human beings. It solves a problem, it's useful to us, okay? Then we broadly term that as meaningful. So judging meaningfulness for humans, we found that it's not so similar as AI doesn't do it so similar to humans. Right? Especially for things that are hoping to be meaningful but have very little precedent. Okay? Where data doesn't tell you is that going to be meaningful or not. Okay? Now, I have some suspicions, and pardon my guesses here a little bit. My current guesses are that it's because AI is judging based on facts, probabilities, and it's inevitably third person. It's not living it. So there is some difference with us. Now, for us, when we judge something, it's a little bit different because we have a brain, we have feelings, we have eyes, and we have a soul, right? So when you're asked to assess something, you actually play in your head, in your imagination, you live it, right? AI doesn't really live it. It can kind of analyze how people might live it, but this, I believe, is at least my guesses at this point in time of what causes that slight difference. And our lived experience also has a certain color to it because you all experience different things, right? So because you experience different things in your life, you might be more sensitive to some things. Your judgment is different from AI, who tries to be a little bit more comprehensive. Okay, so that's just my guess. To put it short, judgment from humans is lived, judgment by AI is unlived, right? This is what I'm sensing could be kind of the root of this difference. Okay, bad news or good news number 3, this is what I don't know how to classify. Our soul might just be the last element left to be the difference as we see AI progress in replicating what we can do without a soul. Okay, so I think this is the last element left. It's good news and bad news. Maybe we can still preserve some difference, but maybe it's the only thing left. Okay, so AI, which purportedly is meant to mimic humans, many people pitch it that way, replace them and then of course supersede them. I have found that it currently is still, like I said earlier, a little bit not quite human. Right? I don't know if you ever use AI to try to mark things, or especially mark very subjective things. I have tried. The mistakes that AI makes, right, is not the same kind of mistakes that humans will make. I don't even know that, right? You will find that it has a lot of speed, rigor, and its synthesis ability is very fast. But then, out of the blue, it can invent a student that didn't exist. Okay, so you see, some mechanism here is causing the underlying functions to be quite different from how we operate. Now, in hopes to see where we can really salvage some of this difference, when I run my classes in NUS for some time now with this area, I ask the question, then can we not, instead of not quite human, let's try to be not quite AI? Can we do things so that our outcomes are not quite AI? So this is what we focus on so far. From being undifferentiated way to rush to right answers, which AI is asking us to do, we try to deliberately move away from that and productively wander in the wrong. Because AI doesn't really want to give you wrong answers unless you ask of it. Human beings also don't want to give you wrong answers, actually. So this is the basis of all our kind of teaching experiments in this area. And I want to just illustrate this with an example from one of my students a few years ago, Rachel. right? What did Rachel do? And I'll show you some interesting, weird things. So when she was trying to design a bag, right, you will see that her prompts are very strange. She asked AI to give her broken holes, big broken holes, bags. Who prompts AI like that? You want to create a bag, you probably say, give me a creative bag, modular, like everything, right? Ergonomic. But she asked for big broken holes, and in fact, actually at that time, 2023, it's actually a bit difficult to get AI to make a bag with a broken hole. Now, a bit easier, right? Because in the training data, nobody trains AI with images of broken hole bags. So she had to actually manually force AI to do it, but she found a way to drive AI to create this almost like broken hole bag generating machine, right? And therefore, she has all these images that comes in the stream where she doesn't know what she's doing. AI also don't know what they're doing, okay? But when she looked at this productive wandering in the wrong, she saw an image that reminded her of something that I believe maybe due to her own personal experiences, she's more sensitized to. She said, this one looks a little bit like a handbag, but also looks like a backpack, right? And maybe in this student's eyes, I don't know, maybe there was one day where she went dating after school and then she's carrying a gym bag or something, and the bag becomes a bit not so cool, right? So she said, can I then do something that transforms between a backpack, a school bag-like thing, and a handbag? And certainly the next step that she took was to make some really funny prototype out of masking tape, very small, right? But that showed her a bit of like, how to do that, as well as the problems when you try to do that, like the strap will be very thick and stuff, right? So, you see, the human has taken on the role of saying, I saw a possibility, AI didn't know what it was, right? There are still problems, let me try to direct AI to solve this. And from this, what she did was, let me just skip this. She, of course, further used AI to visualize it, and she resolved these issues that she found, and this was what she submitted as a year 2 student, first time trying AI, right? A bag that was transformable. So what really happened here? I want to ask you one question first, before we go on, okay? We thought it was good work, okay? Who created this bag? Who created this bag? Who says Rachel? Okay, we have like more than 70% of the room. Who says AI? AI was an ingredient. AI was actually material, right? But you'll see that one of the interesting things is, whenever I ask these questions, people always mostly say, Rachel created it. And when we use AI for creativity, one of the most fearful things is, they will say that it's not my work, right? But in this case, it wasn't the case, right? This is really clear the human hand in this, okay? Now I'm going to summarize a bit for you before I close, okay? Many people are being sold this about AI, that AI is a way to get to correct answers quicker, right? But we are not mindful that oftentimes these are answers of yesterday that others also can easily get, and answers that are hard to claim as yours if you just simply use AI for correct answers quicker, without the productive friction, for example, in the learning process. Now, so instead of doing that, what we found as a useful process for creativity with authorship guaranteed almost, right, and AI augmentation of the creativity, is that you start to ask uncommon exploratory questions that most humans won't ask and AI wouldn't normally default to. Then you go through a lot of wrong possibilities, which is what AI can help you to generate, right? And then you spot a different answer that's meaningful to humanity because maybe you've gone enough times dating with your gym bag, right? And then you could see that this thing is meaningful to people. Now, I want to just quickly summarize that this is what we are increasingly, categorizing under direct, generate, and select, which are 3 areas that you can actually very deliberately grow in students. Now, also to emphasize, this is not a linear process. In fact, sometimes you start from, generate, then you go back to direct and you select. Now, we've done a trial series of classes with Singapore Poly in a collaboration. It's a variation of the course, and this was one of the past things that they usually do, right? They usually do in their maker labs, and you can see the range of creativity is not very broad. The students would just put a graphic on top of something to invent a lamp. Now, when we try to use this process, what we get is students that actually play with a much larger range. But I want you to kind of take a look closer at this title, Laughable Lamps. The process of making broken bags is very similar to saying, now, please make for us a collection of really horrible lamps that you would be embarrassed to show anyone, and the assignment is that, laughable lamps. From there, therefore, with that giving almost the basis of that creative exploration, using AI, the students then see what is meaningful to then translate, right? Spot what works for humans, and then of course they build things. Now their outcomes are a bit like that, and their SP is quite proud of it, so they exhibit in the library. They run 3 cohorts with this so far. Now, what is the effect when they've measured this with students? Quite happily, I didn't have to do this research, they did it themselves, right? They've measured a pre and post type of self-perceived creative ability. Okay, so we must know that it might not be really creativity, but the students perceive themselves to be quite differently creative before and after the intervention. To a degree where the Cohen score is 0.7, which gives us a sense of moderate to large change in that, and that is for 3 classes that have been run. Now, we're still, of course, continuing to generate, to kind of work on this, but last concluding slide, instead of generating, there are 2 other things to do, directing and selecting, right? And in direct, just a reminder, creating a broken back, knowing how to find new creative space, is something you can teach students to do more. I have seen AI doing this better and better. It will self-direct its divergent exploration. So, but I think we can still kind of poke in the new areas, okay? So this is one area to plow on. Generate is very useful because AI does that really well. It does it through a strong, quick permutation and rigor. Sometimes it spots things that we don't even spot, right? And it synthesizes really fast. So I want to just say this. This is an area for me like I concede defeat, right, as a human being, right? We should probably use the machine, right? Of course, we need to frame it and then use it in this space. So maybe don't focus too much on teaching students to do that. Just teach them how to use it, right? And the last part is, I guess, to select well, you need to kind of have experienced life a bit more to know what's meaningful to people. And if Rachel was low-key embarrassed about having a bag in a restaurant like that, right, then that's what causes her to be able to pick those things, right? But of course, it's not just simply living your life. There's also a way to learn about what people respond to and to be more empathetic. I think this is an area that we can build further if we want our students to really use AI in a competitive way, right? Direct, generate, select. So to help you remember, direct, do more of this, generate, this is gone, right? Just use it. Select, sharpen, this is our, I guess, sole difference, right? Or the remaining distinctive that we have. Okay, if you want to snapshot, this one is a bit of a, I won't go through this. It's really what we've broken down as the key elements to train a student in. If you want to train them to direct well, select well. Generate is quite simple, right? It's just AI operations, right? We're slowly fleshing this out ourselves as to what to train the students in, beyond asking them to live lives. Okay, now thank you. I'm keen to collaborate on classroom research if you want to, exchange experiences and ideas, workshops or speak, right? This is my profile and where to contact me is below. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Don. We do have some time for Q&A, so especially for teachers who are in the creative subject areas. So if you have any questions, do feel free to just come over to the microphone stands at the middle of the stage, in the middle of this venue, and you can just post your questions here.
Side note, right? We've observed that this process works even without the visual practice. It's the same when you do a essay. It's the same if you're really trying to push new boundary, right? Okay.
All right. If there are no questions, perhaps I can just ask a very quick one. Since most of the teachers here are from primary, secondary school background, so I would just like to ask if they are an art teacher and they are trying to explore ways to get students to use AI in their classroom, how would you advise them?
Well, like I think it was Haishan who said it earlier, the pedagogical layer is really important because you can see that I didn't really talk about AI so much, right? It was all about how do you frame the creative exploration process. And if you want a student to explore better and more courageously, and now MOE wants inventive creativity, right? Then the pedagogy to guide that to surface is key. You might notice one interesting little twist that we do here quite a bit. We don't tell the students they're like, hey, be open, be creative. We make wrong explorations an assignment. Right? This way they don't start to think of like, hey, you tell me bad ideas are okay, they will still read it as like, you want good ideas, but you give me a concession. So they're still self-conscious. But if you say, you need to submit 12 really horrible ideas, then that self-fear goes out of the window, right? And they just do something funny for you. But then, of course, you have to guide them, how do you then bring an exploration like that AI wouldn't normally do and other humans normally wouldn't do, back into coherence with, say, your art goals, or at least it has an effect on people, right? Or the design goals. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. Don. So can we just put our hands together and thank Prof. Don once again? Thank you. So next, we have Mr. Tan Xiang Yao from Eunoia Junior College, who will share how teachers are using AI tools such as Claude to create customized interactive learning activities without extensive coding, demonstrating practical ways to support engagement, differentiation, and formative assessment. All right, so let's welcome Xiang Yao.
Okay. Good afternoon. Okay, thank you for your sharing, Hai Xiang and Don. Okay, so I'm going to share on vibe coding interactives. Okay, so I guess maybe we start. I have some samples on edtechsims.com. So that will be some interactive activities for secondary school students and JC students, some primary school staff. I've also placed some of the links that are which are relevant and useful on a Padlet. I think the AICET team have sent that Padlet link to everyone. Okay. Okay, so maybe a few more seconds. Okay. Okay, so for us, why do we create interactive simulations? I think there's a need to customize. Sometimes maybe we use those that are based in America and we tell students, click here, click that, forget this part. This part is really not relevant to our syllabus. So some resources are not super suitable. Some of resources are not existing for example, for G3 science. Okay. Sometimes there are certain tech barriers or even physical barriers. Computer labs, I think increasingly there are fewer and fewer computer labs. They are converted to makerspace. They are converted to indoor farms. And when we try to book it, we realize that other colleagues have booked it because of El Nino, it's so hot and they want aircon. So when I wanted to run some Flash thing in the computer lab and there was no computer lab for me to run that program, okay? Or some of these apps are taken down and the resources that we created for them are no longer usable. Also, it's also for us to create the aha moment for students so that they can learn well. I did a quick survey with students about some of these interactive activities we did. And I think in general, secondary school students, most of them find that if we let pedagogy drive instruction, okay, if we are creating the apps with their learning in mind, they actually learn quite well with it. There will be a few students who find that it's not super helpful. I also tried it with some of my JC students, and they actually gave even more positive feedback. And I think it's because sometimes the lessons are really just too long. So when in between we intersperse with like a 5-minute interactive activity, they really enjoyed it. At the same time, I guess the key idea about introducing pedagogical friction, productive failure, if we put it into our apps, students will find it engaging and enjoyable. Okay, so how can we actually go about creating all these interactive activities? I use a lot of C's because I think MOE say like we should not be focused on getting A's. So I was like, okay, put C, create, complexify, connect. So under the create step, usually I do 3 steps, and I think the most important part will be coming up with the prompt. Like if we do a good prompt, I can spend like an hour and a half doing a good prompt, because if I don't do a good prompt right at the start, I realize that I spend a lot of time at the end trying to revise the interactive. So let's take a look. So how I go about it, like imagine it's Monday, like the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, students are punctual, RO didn't give work. So I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, I'll use a free LLM to create that prompt. And it typically starts with the role, right? You're an expert coder and a high school teacher of whatever subject. I always use high school. I think maybe America, their database is larger. It will give a better interactive. The language we want usually is HTML5 because it's easily deployable on different websites. And then I will say, oh, what is it that I want students to learn? Then at this point, I'll go to like SEAB, and then I'll take the learning objective, because that's what, it's better phrased than what I could phrase, right? So I'll just pick one learning objective that I think LM can create and I think students maybe are not very good. Maybe they cannot envision the macroscopic, microscopic, and symbolic aspects of chemistry. And I want to really highlight that. So I'll tell LM, hey, can you make this prompt better? So I have a prompt refiner that I found on, sorry, is this lagging? Okay, I have a prompt refiner that I found on Reddit that I will just use that prompt refiner to refine that draft prompt. So it will refine that draft prompt to come up with an extremely long, much better prompt. At which point I will probably have to revise again. Because when a prompt is too long, I think the LLM will crash again. So typically I will say like 2 pages worth of information to feed to the LLM, it will work. If I put 5 pages, it will more or less be crash somehow, okay? Then I'll take this revised prompt, and then I'll go to Claude, okay? Claude is typically better at creating interactives. So I copy this, and I'll put it into Claude, and after I put it into Claude, I might want to upload some PDF that is relevant, okay? And I will just let it run. Okay, so it will run and start creating the app. At which point I will probably like just go for my lesson or something. So if I'm using a free account, usually there's a limit. So I will run it for a while, then I will go for my lesson, go for my meeting, then maybe in between there's a break, then I will prompt it again. So that is the typical process. Certain things that we can look out for, okay? If we are trying to create models, I think AI is not really good at creating models. So there's typically some sort of lateral thinking involved. Like if, for example, it comes when I'm looking at this model of chemical model, I realized it just cannot give me the shape that I want. I got stuck for so long. I tried like different words, different phrases. Over 1 hour, it didn't give me anything. I said, oh, create a teardrop shape. And then it just gave me the opposite. I said, okay, create cone. And it didn't work. And I kept getting stuck. I guess the frustration is very real when we try to create byte-coded interactive. Sometimes they can just give us what we want immediately, but most of the time I find that they don't. So it helps for us to just think that instead of cone, maybe I have a cone with a hemisphere. And then after that, okay, it still doesn't really look good. So maybe I need a cone with a hemisphere that is the same radius. So increasingly, as we become more targeted with our prompting, it will possibly come up with something that's useful. Okay. Another thing that I thought that byte-coded interactive, they tend to have all this like purple color scheme that sometimes is actually very difficult for students to get. Like everything is purple. Then even like JC students, I tell them click this button, then click the purple button, and then they get stuck. Like everything is purple. So I thought that we can be sensitive to colors. Okay, we can remove certain colors. Tell them that I want you to click this button. Even for very, I thought very able students, they actually need that. Yeah, so that helps. Another thing that I thought would be interesting would be adding sound effects. When you create games, you can use, you can tell AI to add sound effects. They will suggest 3 or 4 different ways for us to add. I find that Web Audio API usually work. Is that sound effect? Okay. So it's quite trivial to have this like random sound effect, but when the whole class has this sound effect, everyone is very happy and they get very competitive and be like, okay, chocolate for the top 3 groups. And then they were like, oh wow, and then they will keep playing, and then when they hear the then it is quite a nice way to add engagement to the class while ensuring that learning takes place. Okay? How can we share the lesson? There are typically 3 ways. I think SLS, there's authoring Copilot which can do this as well. We can do a self-hosted website. We can just download it as HTML and send it to students directly, and when they open it on Internet Explorer, it will work. I guess I would say that it's very important to just download it as a HTML and ensure that it's put in the department folder so that the team is enriched. What I find that across the years is just that resources are created, and because we don't put it in our sharing folders, they tend to disappear. And especially with these resources, if it's created using any of the external apps, I think your conversation will get erased after 3 months or 6 months. So it's good for us to have proper documentation. Yeah, so that's about it. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Sang Yao. Any questions from the audience? You can proceed to the mic.
Hello. Yeah. So I'm just curious. So I understand that LMs to generate the simulations, they need tokens. So how do you manage to get the funding to maybe build more simulations? And how do you convince your boss?
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so when I first started, the bosses was there and they allowed it. Okay, so I like to do the free way. So the free way that I do is I will use, for example, my initial prompt. I will use ChatGPT to do the prompt, and then I'll refine the prompt during ChatGPT. Then I will feed that revised prompt to Claude. Claude usually, I realize it can do 3 big requests for one session. So I'll do one request, it will create. Then I will, edit this tiny part, and I'm done for that session, like 10 minutes. Then the next time that I want to use it, right, will probably be like 5 or 6 hours later. So I'll do that maybe during some benchmarking session, then I'll open it up and I'll do it. So I do not create it at one go. So I might create it over 1 week. Then the next time I prompt, it will be very rough. Then the next time I do it will be like another session, during, I don't know, then students are doing the test and I'm very bored, I just do it for a while. Yeah. So that's how I do it in the free way lah. Yes. But of course, SLS, there is a way to do it. MOE is paying for it. We can use authoring Copilot to do it. My understanding is it works quite well, but it is using an older model. So if you want to try the newer models, you probably have to use your own private accounts. Yes. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, thanks.
Any more questions? All right, if not, thank you so much, Xiang Yao. Thank you, Xiang Yao, for the very engaging and generous sharing. I think your sharing has also reminded us that this is also a learning process for teachers. Looking at how many times you experimented, iterated, and test from platform to platform. Okay, so now let's move on to the next sharing by AICET. So we are actually sharing on reimagining Chinese oral practice with 口试. So 口试 is AICET's latest innovation for PSLE Chinese oral preparation, designed to provide speaking practice anytime, anywhere. So 口试 helps students build confidence through consistent practice and timely feedback. So let's welcome our team from AICET.
Thank you. How many are aware of this? Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy? Okay, so as per Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, 42 is the answer to everything. But I'm pretty sure for all the teachers out here, we are aware. Oops. Is the number of days left for the PSLE exam. Right? So at this juncture, we are excited to release the youngest product for AICT for the young ones. 口试. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah. So 口试 is an oral practice platform that's prepared for kids who are practicing for oral examination. So the biggest concern that we all teachers have is how do we give enough practice to the students who are preparing for oral exams? Because we all know that the only way they can do better, the only way they can improve, if they speak more. Speaking more with someone who listens. Speaking more to someone who is not going to judge. A safe environment. Speaking more to someone who's going to give them feedback and tell them how to improve. Teachers, they want to be that someone, but with limited time and a big enough class, it's not humanly possible to give attention to each and every student and give them the adequate practice that they all need. 口试 is built to solve this exact problem that you all have. Let's see how.
Every PSLE student drills past year papers for the written portion of PSLE. But when it comes to oral examination, most get only a handful of chances before the real thing. Speaking is the one part of the PSLE you can't take back. One live conversation in front of an examiner. It decides a quarter of the Chinese grade and a fifth of the English. Together, almost an eighth of a student's entire PSLE. But every oral practice needs a real conversation. One teacher can only listen to one student at a time, while the rest of the class waits. Giving every student enough speaking practice before the PSLE is one of the hardest parts of teaching oral. Introducing 口试, our PSLE oral practice platform, giving every student unlimited practice, anytime, anywhere. Meet 老师, your personalized AI tutor inside 口试, patient, consistent, and always ready to listen. We simulate the real exam. You watch a short clip, and the conversation begins. You just speak. 老师 listens, asks follow-up questions, and responds in real time. A real conversation, not a worksheet. The moment you finish, your report is ready. What went well, and the one thing to practice next, on screen and read aloud so it sticks. So you go again, and again, a little more fluent, a little more confident each time. The whole class can practice at once, and you see every student's progress in one place, graded on a PSLE-aligned rubric. Confident oral practice, anytime, for every student. That's 口试. Book a demo to see it in your own classroom.
That's cool, right? Yeah. So you have already met Lao Shi. That's our AI teacher that powers the entire platform. And we feel it's a perfect companion for your classrooms today. Why? Because it's untiring, relentless, available for your students today. So all you need to do is start a practice, and she handles the rest. Make sure she delivers with care and patience. Give each student a turn to talk, and it's aligned to a real exam. Kosher is designed to fit your classrooms, or the way you teach. You simply author a practice, or use one from our library. You assign it to a class and let it go. At the end of a day, you'll have a dashboard where you see the entire class's performance at a glance, how each student is doing. You can deep dive into every student. You see who is struggling, who needs attention, and you can intervene whenever you feel is the right time to do that. Everything at a glance. And the numbers and the scores you see are not black box. Lao Shi explains what's happening under the hood. The numbers you see, they're all explainable. You see why the score is so, what the students did good in, where they need to improve, what is to fix next. It's consistent for every student. So you can measure their performance amongst each other, and also you can measure how they are doing within your own attempts, how they are improving across the attempts. We built rubrics such that it aligns closely with the PSLE rubrics, but we understand each school may have their own needs, they may have their own requirements, and they might want to customize the way they are being scored. And we hear you. So the rubrics inside Kosher is completely customizable. You can change, and the reports will be generated automatically. And finally, these reports are not just a wall of text that the students need to go, read, and understand. We deliver an audio report that Lao Shi herself delivers to the students. They listen, they understand what they did good in, they understand what is the next thing they can work on and improve their performance. We understand that adopting any of these technologies in school, it comes with its own quirk. There are concerns. And we try to address them while we build from the ground up. We make sure that Kosher is safe for students. Our guardrails ensure that the students never go off topic. The entire student data is kept private, and all the personal identifiable informations are stripped before we store them. And there's a full transparency for you teachers. You can see each interaction of a student to the platform. You can see what they have talked about. You can listen to the conversation. You see the feedback. Adapting such a tech in schools also have IT concern on how we are going to do this, right? So Kosher is ready for your school IT. It runs within your browser. There is no need for an app installation. It works on all the devices, whether it be mobiles, laptops, tablet, right out of the box. It's designed to work within school network. And there might be a firewall rule that might need to be set, but that's something we can sort it out with your school IT if you plan to use Kosher. But what does it mean for your students or for you, and what will it give? For students, the loop is simple. They come to a practice, they talk, they get reply, they talk, have a conversation with coach, and in the end, they get a report on what they can improve, and then they just go again. For you, you ensure that the scores that the students receive is aligned to a real exam with customizable rubric. You're always in control. You know what practices, when to release. You see what students are doing, who are attempting, who are struggling, and can deep dive into these reports. We ensure that all the interactions are safe and they are school ready. And finally, we support both video and image stimulus, making it ready for English as well as Chinese orals right out of the box. And we are happy to let you know that we open up the trials for schools today. Right. Nice. Now I expect to, I expect the Zooms to translate to the forms that are going to come next. Let's see here. So what does it mean? How you can get started? Very simple. You just pick up a class and topic that you want. We do all the heavy lifting for you. We help you set up your class. We help to make it ready. You can try it out yourself, and once you think that, okay, this suits your need, just release it to the students. The students practice, and you just see them going and improving over time. So in the end, you just keep teaching the way you already do. Kosher just gives every student more chance and more turns to speak. So we are excited to present you with this opportunity to give each student the chance to speak, to improve and get more practice, and to gain confidence in Chinese orals and English orals, something that you have always wanted to do. If this excites you, just scan this cute little QR code, and our team will get in touch with you and help you set up it for your class. That's Kosher. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see a number of phones whipped out to scan the QR code, so there must be a certain level of interest here. So any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to head over to the mic. You're wondering if you can develop and implement this in your schools. Any questions?
Hi, thank you for the very engaging product demo of sorts. Yeah, I think it was quite a good pitch, very engaging. I was very curious because I coded an app for a teacher's use case. So I called it 慢头, like slow head, but it was to practice like talking to Chinese parents in Mandarin. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different use case. So I was curious about the API that you are using with Kosher, because actually voice-to-text APIs are quite expensive. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So I'm also happy to let you know that this entire product is built by an amazing team sitting right behind at the back of this room. Hey, Marcus and Satvik, can you just wave for everyone? Right? And this entire platform was built in roughly 2 months of time. And the exciting feature is our team has been working on improving these voice agents for past 1 year. And we have tried to nail down to how to bring the cost down, how to have active guardrails. So although you see this platform coming right in time in 2 months' time, the technology stack that is powering this has been built for more than a year now and has been consistently improving. The use case is extremely new. And we hear you, right? So the voice APIs are extremely high, and if you go to LLM, TTS, the pipeline, this gets slow. So basically we use variety of tricks here to improve that under the hood. Happy to chat offline about it. But in the end, we do rely on a lot of different APIs. We rely on OpenAIs and Geminis for a lot of our text generation. We have used various set of APIs and have experimented which one works well for the use cases, and it's fully adaptive. So over time, we do also have backup APIs that if something fails down, which you might have faced if you are doing it, sometimes the response doesn't come in, so how do we control that? So the engine that powers it has been battle tested earlier before it's released in Kosher. Yeah, happy to chat more about it. Yeah.
Just asking from the teacher's hat. So I assume that now you are kind of in still a user discovery, user testing phase. So it's probably free, right, for the trial? Okay.
For now, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So for now, it's free. We have roughly 6 weeks left for PSLE. So 42. So basically, just scan this QR code. We'll get right away in touch, and probably you can test it out this week. And if you want it in your classrooms, we are more than happy to expedite the entire thing.
Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you for the engaging talk. So I have 2 questions. So the first one is, because we also have tried some speaking models, right? We realize that it is towards American slang. How do you make sure that it's localized? That's the first question. And the second one is, we also had some concerns from colleagues that, let's say, if the students speak to it, the AI model would learn their voice and then about security issues. So how do you all guard against that? These 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. So the second one first, more important. So when you are subscribed to the APIs as enterprise, essentially the terms and conditions say that they are not going to use it for active development and training. So their terms, if they violate the terms and conditions, it's them violating the terms and conditions, but essentially they are practically not allowed to use it to train further. So something that's covered by the terms and conditions of the API providers. Coming to the first question, yes, it is often hard, and we have Karina on the house, who is our in-house expert for prompt engineers, her job is to make sure to solve the exact same problem for you, amongst the gazillion things she does otherwise, right? So yes, it is hard. Fixing them, you need a very specific style of prompting. You need a specific style of prompting to the underlying STTs. You need a specific style of prompting to the TTS. Is it 100% fail-safe? No. There might be still instances where it might misrecognize characters and all, but what we have seen is where we started from 2 months back to here, these instances are very, very low now, and all the credit goes to the amazing prompt that has come out that powers the entire thing to control it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right, if we don't have any more questions, I understand that we have been seated here for an hour, so we'll go for a short break, but before that, all right, my team would like to just gather everyone together and take a quick group photo, and after which, we can go for our break. All right, so shall we just perhaps fill up the empty seats in the middle, and then we can take a photo from over here. All right, so if you're seated at the side, maybe you want to just move a little bit closer to the center just for this photo op. All right, thank you everyone. We'll now take a short break, so please be back by 3:35. All right, and we'll resume promptly with the second half of the program. All right, so to kickstart our second half of our session, we have Ms. Wong Xiu Yan from Maristella High School. Xiu Yan will share how AI personas were integrated into a social studies lesson to help students explore multiple perspectives on cultural globalization, fostering empathy, active listening, and deeper classroom discussions. Over to you, Xiu Yan.
Thank you so much. This is a common grievance that we hear in staff room. We taught well, but why didn't they learn? Okay, so I'm Xiu Yan. Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of the humanities team from Maristella High School, we are looking at one possible consideration to overcome the problem. How do we make content stick? And beyond just content, we are also looking at deepening the E21CC competencies that is also the buzzword in today's educational landscape. So very quickly, beyond just moving from content, we want them to hone competency. One of it would be the E21CC. And beyond just explanation, we also want students to have that experience of how they can explore complexity in a social studies classroom. So with that, as a team, we thought of using AI augmented learning together with Celis. This is the popular cat that we love in our humanities department. How it can bring about a more enriching experience for our Marists. So very quickly, can I have a show of hands? How many of you are SS teachers? Okay, welcome. Always happy to see someone from the fraternity. So just a very quick overview of the lesson detail so that it can have a clearer understanding of how the lesson was conceptualized. Sec 4 students, G3 stream. It is chapter 10, talking about the cultural impact of globalization. And the key learning outcome will be this element here. The responses to the cultural impact of globalization. Why do people accept and why do people resist? So the lesson details, we intentionally explore various learning experience, face-to-face, and also acquisition of knowledge with using of Celis, AI learning experience in SLS, and the E21CC that we want to emphasize will be adaptive thinking and communication skills. As you can see later, how this will be surfaced in the various parts of the lesson. So live before Celis, it was student will receive perspective. It can be from teacher's point of view, teacher stories, or notes that we have curated for the learners. But with Celis, perspective taking becomes a simulated and interactive experience. So the evidence that you'll be able to see later will be how students ask follow-up questions and they test assumptions and clarify things that they want to know with regard to cultural impact of globalization. Secondly, in fact, when it is pre-Celis period, students stop having questions. They are very passive sitting down there. They may even stop wondering. They are hoping that teacher will tell me what's the next set of instruction. So in short, passive learners. But with Celis, they start to ask questions, as you can see later. They are curious. And in fact, curiosity is a very important disposition in the AI intense era that we are seeing. And more importantly, they are taking ownership of the learning. So we can see that in the co-construction of knowledge when they gather in teams to talk about their various AI characters that they have interviewed. And more importantly, beyond just receiving information passively, they are actively processing information. And with that, they are actually assessing different contexts and making new connection. That is what we are hoping for, making learning stick. And when learning stick, they can transfer their knowledge into new situation. So let's take a look at the active engagement part where they actually get the knowledge acquisition by interviewing AI characters. So the learning orientation that the department has designed will be experiential learning, where the students will do via active engagement. They will start to make sense of the information that they have as a group and subsequently transfer the knowledge. And the teacher play a very central role because the teacher will guide the process as a facilitator. So let's take a look at the first part where it is an individual setting where they will interview AI characters in SLS. So this is a scenario that we set for our Marist. Imagine you are a reporter, you are tasked to explore the different cultural impact of globalization, and you are supposed to interview 4 profiles that we have curated. So these are the 4 profiles that we have set down as a team and curate. We intentionally select a gentleman from Japan, a youth from Singapore, a hawker from Singapore, and also an entrepreneur in Bali, who are both in the F&B business. So in this case, some may wonder, are we using technology for the sake of using technology? So the answer is no, because when we intentionally build in Celis, we are actually making the experience more interactive instead of just reading printed sources or worksheets where the experience can be relatively flat. So that is the replacement aspect if we are looking at the EdTech pedagogy. So next, the students will start to make sense and engage with Sally's, the AI character. So take a look. I will pause here. This is how the interaction looks like on the SLS Sally's platform. So this is the character that the student interviewed, Ahok. Okay, and the students will then engage in asking questions. Because they are reporter, they are supposed to ask questions to elicit out certain responses. This is where we are also hoping that they will be able to draw out the empathy when they hear from real life stakeholders. So I'll pause here to let you take a look at the interaction between Sally's and also the student. So the interaction is very, very different from reading flat sources or printed sources. It is also very different from video because there's an interactive live element. And if you take a look, the student also becomes empathetic. It must have been hard for you, Ahok. So what can we do or help? And then subsequently, Ahok responded according to what we have designed in the prompt. So these are things that the students can read from textbook, but it becomes live and it becomes interactive. That brings in another different layer of element into this learning experience. So in short, what the student did, student actively asking questions, and this revealed that the student is able to see the perspective from a live stakeholder, and also why AI matters, because it is live, it is also interactive, and it is instant, I would say. So again, back to the RAT model, students are able to get a richer stakeholder perspective. As SS teachers, I think videos are a usual part and parcel of our teaching engagement, but videos cannot provide instant interaction. So this is where the AI is able to bring value to the learning experience. So take a pause here. Could you read through what the interaction was? So the student was so drawn into interviewing Ahok and wanting to do a part to help revive the hawker culture, but because of my engineering prompt, Ahok actually cut him off. So this brings me to the next part. When it comes to AI augmented learning, what we are looking out for is responsible AI integration. So within student learning space, I think the guardrails are very, very strong. So firstly, I think most of us are aware there's a knowledge base that we can upload to prevent hallucination from taking place. And the next part is where the teacher plays a very important role, the prompt engineering. So I was very happy earlier on, I think I hear Mr. Yao talking about how he spent 1 hour doing prompt engineering, because I think I talk more to the AI than to my husband when it comes to prompt engineering. Because you can get a high when you keep talking to the AI and you keep revising it and you see the AI getting more and more nearer to the experience that you want it to give to the students. So in short, you can use this mode raft seed, okay, to actually guide you in drafting out the AI experience that you want to bring out. So for a start, for beginner, you may just want to try with raft. But subsequently, as you get more and more proficient, the prompt engineering can help bring out a more enriching experience for our learners. So let's go back to the earlier scene that I've paused. So what took place was because the prompt that I've set was so tight that AI prioritized the broad learning goal over answering the student's question. So from department's point of view, we adjusted. We clarify that students may ask solutions, support or actions that is part of the learning. So instead of cutting the student short, let the conversation flow. As long as it is within the boundary that they are learning within the SS syllabus, it is a teachable moment. Next. Are you surprised to see this? Okay, I'm not, because in school I think we are not teaching compliance. So what happened was, last year, there was a student who went off tangent, and the good thing is, Sally's in SLS stood its ground and didn't answer, and then keep directing back to the question. So I thought that, oh, very good, our prompts are very tight. And then this year, we experienced this. So the student said, Miss Wong, because it's a Japanese, I interview in the native language. So I said, okay, thank you so much, I will further tighten our prompts. So what this student did was, he feed it into Google. So English, Japanese, English, Japanese. So these are the precious moments that we have in class. So again, what should I do? I will go back and tighten my prompt. And this is what we did for this year, entirely in English, because the students would be always very creative to test boundaries. And some refinement that we did. So for those who are keen to try, the learning never stops. After one round of iteration, we will go and refine it. So very quickly, could you take a look at the interaction that the student have? So the student didn't follow what we expect him to do. So the student wants the shortcut. Give me everything in point form. So this is where we realize calibration of expectation at the start of the lesson helps. And that will elicit better quality responses. So we will ask the students, is this a note-taking session or are you doing an interview? If you are doing an interview, how does an interview sound like? So we will also show positive exemplars. So this is a student in class. He was able to probe, challenge, clarify, and connect ideas within the SLS interaction with the characters. So take for example, he actually asked AI, this is the Japanese elderly who was interacting with this student about the cultural impact of globalization. He was actually able to expand further and ask probing questions to the AI. So this is the kind of thinking I think we want to encourage amongst our students. May not be 100% all students are doing it, but some students do have the platform because they are higher readiness, and Sally's provides that possibility for them. So that is the earlier part where they are interacting with the AI. So here comes the next part, the face-to-face discussion. So they will then gather back into their groups, and that is where they will exchange ideas and they'll learn about different perspectives. So this is how the worksheet will look like after everyone talk about their own various perspectives. So they will have 4 perspectives to talk about and to co-construct to answer a bigger extended question later. This is a video to show you how it is like in Sally's AI augmented learning experience. So the richness will be present when they have to process the information before sharing. So that is one sort of, I would say that there's no, the learning is not short circuit. In fact, they have to process it before they talk to the students, their classmates, and in this case, classmates can clarify questions as well. So the face-to-face collaboration, after that, they will extend the learning. This is where we want them to come together and co-construct knowledge. So these are the questions that we have curated to bring out that idea. Okay, which group is more supportive? Why? Which group is less supportive, and again, why? So something that we also learned, students are creative. So as long as you leave a blank face here, they will also surprise you. So let's take a look. Okay, handwriting is an issue, so I will not stress test your eyes. In short, this is what the students wrote. I give you some processing time. So from the practitioner point of view, this is where the teacher competency comes in. We are able to see that students actually recognize the age and digital divide. Okay, students also understand that there is unequal cultural impact and it is due to economic resources. So this was actually a highlight that the department were very pleasant to see. It was not our intention to have this as a extended learning, but we are happy to see students connecting Chapter 9, Economic Impact of Globalization, to Chapter 10, Cultural Impact of Globalization. So the synergizing of ideas is something that we are very pleasant to have the boys demonstrate out to us. And of course, lastly, the empathy part about how older generation could be taught technology and the constructive action is also being demonstrated as they discuss. So this is where we will bring it out, the E21CC, adaptive thinking, where students will assess different contexts and they are able to make connection to bring out new insights. This again demonstrates that the learning has stick and they are able to transfer what they have learned to a new setting, which is these questions that we have presented to them. Next, this is another sample work. So as you can see, the kids are different in their mannerism of exploration. So again, some evidences, the students were able to demonstrate that adaptive thinking, the comparison was demonstrated when they talk about how the youth embraced and actually the elderly resisted, and there's a reason why. It's really to protect the identity and the heritage. And then they were able to demonstrate the perspective taking and also talk about why Ahok resist while the entrepreneur in Bali actually support using live stream to talk about food culture and food fusion so as to further his business in Bali. So they understand the various fears and values behind the differing views, and more importantly, I think they were able to come up with a reasoned judgment, which is one of the skills that we want to have in social studies, moving beyond just describing, but to broader insights that they can draw from this learning experience. So again, the RAT model is being demonstrated here. How the value adding was done, I think it is about the ability to draw new insights. Very different from just pen and paper discussion or just giving them sources. It tends to be a more flat experience. So let's hear from the students' feedback. I give you some time to take a look. So with Sally's in SLS, AI was able to amplify learning. So it is really about asking questions. This is the insights, open-ended response by the students. It's about asking questions. By asking questions, I can explore points of contention. And more importantly, hearing from the students, it is the interactive element. And then the students was able to compare with previous experiences of just reading notes. And the value of real-time interview. That instant moment where someone responds to your question and it does give proper sense. So it talks to them about how people are really affected by globalization. It places them in the shoes of different stakeholders. I think this is the most powerful one. It puts a face to what we are learning. So this is the varied method that we hope that perhaps this is something that colleagues can consider, and we do have a free model which is the Sally's Learning Assistant in SLS that is very powerful. So personal reflection, when it comes to designing AI augmented learning, start with the learning objective, not the AI tool. It must value add, and do use AI to scale hard to replicate experience. I'm not able to bring in different stakeholders, but with AI Sally's, I was able to do that. So in between, we are also able to strengthen their competency for E21CC, and most importantly, I think it is the teachers' expertise in this case. Come together as a team, talk about it. This is where the teacher as classroom practitioner, your head knowledge will come in for the design of the lesson. So in short, the teacher role cannot be underestimated. So in short, we are also will not be out of job. Yeah, okay. Because from the students' feedback, they really value teacher rather than just talking to the AI or AI giving flat feedback. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Xiu Yan. All right, do we have any questions for Xiu Yan? Yes.
This was fascinating, and also I really appreciated the iterative development of the AI character. I was just wondering whether you already have plans or have you begun taking it, one step further where, in an interview, right, how you say things matter, right? If you ask a certain way, the person can clam up, right? And whether they deliberately can introduce a layer of friction so that they know that if they don't, if they offend the person or if they don't ask in a certain way, the person will close up. Now, because when I read the interview responses, this is a very cooperative respondent, right? I saw an opportunity here. I think that as teachers, you guys could really make the students, I guess, taste even more the real world of interviews, right? Thanks so much for this.
Thank you so much. I think it's a very valuable input. I think I rather they learn it in school than they learn it outside in the hard world. So I think this is where we can adjust the prompt, how AI should respond. So we do keep in close contact with our history colleague. So one of the history teacher designed interviewing Stalin. And the teacher said to the AI prompt, he must be curt and rude. So the response that Stalin gives to the students will be a very curt and a sarcastic response. So thank you so much. I think it brings in that element, additional element that we can also bring out for the students in the real world. Thank you, Prof.
All right, thank you. Once again, Xiu Yan, for the very thoughtful sharing. Thank you. All right, you really painted a very candid and realistic image of how a classroom looks like with the use of AI. I was just looking at the examples that Xiu Yan have shown, and it reminded me of how my students used to also give me all kinds of very creative answers. Okay, so next up, we'll have another sharing, and this time round, it's by Boon Lay Secondary School. So representing Boon Lay Secondary School, we have Madam Faida, Mr. Kwek Jun Hong, as well as Miss Fatiha, who will share their journey on implementing Scholastic across subjects in the school. And they will also discuss about how teacher professional development, AI-supported reading activities, and learning analytics have supported meta-connection, DI, differentiated instruction, and more targeted student support. All right, so let's hear from the team.
Thank you, thank you. I didn't know the synopsis was so long, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Jun Hong. First, I want to ask, how many of you were here in the January sharing? A few, okay. So, okay, then I know what to say next. Okay, I was tasked by my team that I was told I only have 2 minutes to talk, so I'll talk a bit faster. Okay, we're here to share a little bit on Boon Lay's journey with the use of Gen AI and role-playing chatbots in school, how we started on this journey. Now, we need to, as with the use of any AI, we need to first ask ourselves why. The why is important, don't use it for the two. I think that's been said many, many times today already. Okay, so with the why, then we can think about how. Then after the how, we talk about the what. Okay, so we came on board with Scholastic because we were testing this. They were very nice. They were helping us test this FSBB bot because we were trying to prepare our teachers to have very difficult conversations and uncertain conversations with parents. So this was the parent engagement bot. So what happened was that we put in all the FSBB data, progression data inside. Then there were scenarios for teachers to practice how to talk to parents because parents can be uncertain, right? And it's new. FSBB is new. So we had teachers who input wrong information. We had teachers who copied information from another AI to put inside and got scolded upside down by the parent. But again, this was a matter of identifying use case. Because with role-playing chatbots, you can repeat the conversation. You say the wrong thing once, let's try another angle. You say the right thing once, you want to try something else. What if you irritate the parent? Can I subtly hint at something? How to convince the parent to get the kid to all take G1 subjects? A bit hard. In Singaporean context, really a bit hard. Okay, but that was that. So I think the idea here is really to identify use case. Okay, so with that, we moved on to school PD. We PD our management call with our teachers. Then we found a platform to roll out to all our students. So we use Scholastic as one of our many, many tools. Okay, I think everyone here eat muffin before, right? Okay, I apologize, okay? Okay, so this picture came out many years ago when machine learning first started. Then they were trying to get machines to determine what's what. Again, if you can spot the chihuahua and the chocolate chip muffin, yeah, okay. The point here is this: it's not to ruin your impression of muffins and chihuahuas. It is to make a point that with AI are ultimately trained, rather language models are ultimately trained models that are trained to find patterns. How they find the pattern depends on what training data you feed it. What prompts you put in, what knowledge base you put in. Even then with RAG, you might not get, not your entire knowledge base get tapped on all the time because they get truncated. So all these things matter. So when the bot tells your students that it's a muffin, sometimes maybe it's a chihuahua. Okay, now, I think my time almost up, I'm sorry. Okay, so running, is it possible, so there's a question here, I think many of us will have, is it possible to only use one tool? I think the answer is no. Okay, the answer is no. This is my school stack environment right now. I think I missed out a few. So you notice that there are many different kinds of tools there that are used for many different things. Okay, can I zoom in? Okay, SLS is here, okay, I don't hate SLS, we use SLS every day. But must say, because there are different affordances. Remember I said I started out with why. Find out why you're using something, find out how, and then find what. With that, I must share this story with you. Is it here? You see this Wolfram Alpha thing, right? So I was told, I was half blackmailed by a colleague to subscribe to Wolfram Alpha because he tells me this is the best in class for generating algebra practice questions. So so okay we buy. So we have one account for it. So he's been trying out. He hasn't gotten back to me. I assume it's being used. Okay, she doesn't know that. Okay, but we really do use many things for many different reasons. I think one of the things that Scholastic affords is the ability to switch between LMs, a lot of different models, and it allows us to see what the students are talking about. With public or paid, even with paid premium subscriptions, you have a problem of not being able to see your students' chats. And over time, you don't know whether the subscription will increase. In this case, got NUS brand now, then we trust Prof a bit. We trust Prof a lot more. Okay, so that's that. Okay, I think my time is up. I will now pass the time over to my lovely colleagues over here who will be sharing a little bit more about how we do PD in school and also a specific subject example. Thank you.
Okay, more than 2 minutes, Chun Hong. Okay, so for us, like what Chun Hong said, we start with the why. So we asked ourselves, what are our challenges? And for our school, many of us, we face the challenge of having, as many of the schools here, so I believe, having varied learners, diverse learners, right? So we have different learner readiness. We also have different limited personalized support during our lessons. And then, so we also, our students also tend to immediately always look for the teachers for help. So now with AI also, they are now always very quick to turn to AI to seek answers. But then like what Hai Xiang said just now, P4, P5 students lack self-regulation. Our secondary school students also still lack the self-regulation. So they are seeking answers but not really thinking about it. So we wanted to see how we can help them because we want them to have the productive struggle, not productively making our teachers struggle. right? So this is our focus. We wanted to have differentiated support. We wanted them to have to see how we can improve their metacognitive thinking, and all this is to drive student agency in our school. So we also know that before we do anything, we need to prepare our teachers to know to use AI purposefully, the why again. So we go back to the why. So how do we do that? For our school, after the school-wide PD on introducing Scholastic, our staff then had the opportunity to sign up for a learning series, whereby in this year-long learning series, we get to have the time and space to experiment and explore Scholastic. And then within that space, we discuss the affordances, and then after that, we move on into the classroom application, whereby we focus on the why, and then we use it to do the how after that. So some of the things that they are doing, so some of the lessons, so we use it for CCE, we use it for mother tongue languages, we use it for computing. So some classroom examples. So math teacher used this for exploring standard form in their G3 math classroom. So this is a question. This is a student conversation with the Scholastic bot. English teacher used it to plan a personal recount. So see how they say that they will not write the essay for them, but they will guide them in the thinking or the planning process. Music used it to get the students to explore jazz. So all these students, they chat with the bot first to find out what jazz is about. So what we observed from this is that the students, they are more willing to attempt the task. They also mentioned how they appreciated the fact that compared to the public AI platforms that they use out there, the responses are shorter, easier for them to digest, easier for them to understand. It's also more targeted, so they know that, okay, this is what the AI said, so then how do I respond? If they ask me a question, then they can answer those questions moving forward. For the teachers, we mentioned when we discussed how we liked the idea of the visibility of misconceptions, because with Scholastic, we are allowed to view their chats. So with the chats, we were able to pick out the misconceptions, and then it also allowed us to have that data to drive our steps moving forward. Yeah, so with these affordances, our colleagues from the Mother Tongue department then used Scholastic for their reading program, which my colleague now will bring you through.
Okay, hi everyone. Okay, I'm Fatia here. Okay, so as mentioned by Faida just now, so I attended the session by her where she guided us during the learning series, right? So for me, I will share with all of you how I apply Scholastic, okay, specifically for Malay language. Okay, but for me, I choose more for my reading program. Okay, because the problem for my students is this is from the Sec 1 to Sec 3 students. Okay, so the problem is that my Malay students, okay, they find it hard to enjoy reading. Okay, this is because of the language barrier. Okay, as you all know now, they speak more of English, right? So for Malay, they have limited vocabulary. So because of that, they lost the interest lah. So this is where I'm trying to make use of Scholastic, okay, to make these two assessments. Okay, so firstly, I'll share with you how I actually created a chatbot, okay, whereby the students are able to check on the understanding, okay, of the short story that they read, okay, and as well as the second one will be the escape room. Right. Okay. So, okay, but before that, okay, I'll explain the as we hear just now from the presentations, right? The pedagogy behind it is also important, right? So, this is where I will share with you the two pedagogy behind, okay, what we did just now, okay, was the refinement learning technique. Okay, so to just simplify, okay, it means if you can explain it, you understand it. Okay, so for this technique, basically it provides the students with the steps, right? So you can see here the steps, right? But for more importantly, metacognition is where the students are able to be guided in terms of their thinking process. Okay, that means they are aware of how they think. Okay, so for example, I just take one example, let's say step 3. Okay, so later I will share with you more specific on the I don't know responses. Okay, so this is where, this is a step is when the students don't know, right? Okay, so this the method cognition comes in whereby you will provide the students with the prompts, okay, to make them think through, okay, the steps, right? So that they realize where the learning gaps are. Yeah, okay, right. Okay, so I will just go on with specific examples. Okay, I only have 1 minute. Alright, okay, so on the right side, okay, you can see there is the lower profile of my students. Okay, so common, right? Some would just say, I don't know. Okay, but this is where the prompts actually guide the students, okay, to don't just stop there. Okay, there is the empathy there, like what was presented earlier. Okay, so they'll guide them with some questions, okay, for them to think through, and that's where my lower B students is able to give she felt sad, right? Okay, on the right side is the higher end, okay, higher ability students, whereby you can see the responses are longer, right? Okay, but it also doesn't stop there. Okay, so scholastic from the prompts, right? Okay, they are able to actually extend their learning, okay, so that they are able to elaborate further. Okay, so this is the method cognitive scaffolding. Okay, whereby scholastic is able to give that kind of differentiation and personalization of learning. Right, so the next part is this is where the metacognitive reflection comes in, right? So on the right side, okay, so you can see here how the prompts actually guide the students to actually reflect, okay, on what are the values that they can learn, okay, from the short story that they read. Okay, so it's also to see how there's a deep learning, okay, that takes place beyond the storyline, right? So on the left side, okay, this is right, the story, the boy didn't die, but the boy was in a coma. Okay, so the student say the boy died. So this is where the prompts actually try to correct the student's misunderstanding. Okay, but it doesn't just give the correct answers. Okay, it further prompt the student, okay, to think about what can they learn, okay, after they give the right answers, right? So do you remember what happened? So they have to go on and answer. So there's an interaction going on, right? Okay, so lastly, okay, I will share with you all the second part of the assessment, which is the escape room. Okay, so previously I actually used Tingling, okay, to do up the escape room. Okay, Tingling is also very good because it's able to give that kind of immersive experience to students. Okay, but because of the lack of time, okay, I have to create another assessment for that in Tingling. So I may use of Scholastic, okay, whereby it's easier, it's faster. Okay, and I will show you here the different question types that I try to adjust the prompts. Okay, so for example, you can see here there is the breaking the secret code, right? And then there's also sequencing of story, okay, and also fill in the blanks using the characters diary entry. So these are some examples, okay, of how I try to still use AI, okay, to able to provide that kind of engaging experience to students. Okay, so there's another alternative, okay, whereby it saves time, okay, but at the same time, it's still able to give that the pedagogy behind it that we want, okay, which is enable the students to understand the story, but also able to have the interactive elements, okay, at the same time able to engage their interest. So as you can see here, this is the feedback that I did with them. So you can see most of them agree that, strongly agree, okay, that they enjoy, okay, the experience of the escape room as well as able to think deeply about the story. Okay, so that's all for me. I'm sorry that I exceed a bit. Alright, so okay, so now I will leave the floor for any Q&A, okay, which my colleague will answer.
Thank you so much. We are looking at the time as well, so actually if you have any questions after our learning journey, you can approach the team over here, and I believe that they will be more than happy to share with you a little bit more about how they have utilized Scholastic in their school. And it's really heartening to see how Scholastic has been used in such creative manners, because Scholastic is actually an AICET in-house platform. So if you are curious about how you can utilize this in your school, do approach us as well as the team over here as well. Alright, so next we have our last sharing by Ms. Diana Ma from Eunoia Junior College. Diana will share how SoftMark has been implemented in her school to streamline marking and provide more timely feedback. So she will also share practical lessons from adopting AI-powered assessment tools in the school setting. So let us welcome Diana.
Okay, good afternoon to all of you. Okay, I think I'm here to basically share our college journey on how we have actually made use of SoftMark. Okay, so just a very quick introduction to SoftMark. It's basically a platform for us to carry out marking digitally. Okay, and I'm here basically to really share how we have actually carried this out. Okay, to help you guys to better understand what SoftMark is actually all about, okay, I'll start off with a very short video introduction first for you to understand how this works.
Introducing SoftMark, your dependable companion for marking scripts. SoftMark uses the power of modern technology to streamline the assignment grading process for teachers. With SoftMark, you will never have to worry about the pains of transporting scripts and limited marking concurrency. Simply upload the papers to our system and have access to it at home or on the go. SoftMark allows for easy distribution of marking workload for concurrent marking, improving the turnover of marking homework and exams quickly. Our system is capable of handling both multiple choice questions and open-ended questions efficiently and effectively. After setting up the MCQs, marking just takes a click of a button. For open-ended questions, our system goes beyond manual marking and ensures standardized grading for students by allowing rubric-based marking. No need to rewrite the same comments for every student. Simply drag and drop or check off the rubrics onto the paper. SoftMark also helps with auto-tabulation of scores for each question, for every student. No need to ever worry about miscalculating final scores again. When you are done marking, double-checking your scripts is easy with our preview feature. If you need to save the marked papers somewhere for safekeeping, simply download them with the click of a button. Of course, we also provide the feature to email the marked scripts to your students. All done. Students just have to log into their SoftMark account to view their marked scripts. There, they can even add comments for further learning and clarification from their teacher directly. What we have shared here with you is just the tip of the iceberg, and we have so many other features for you to explore as well. Are you an educator? We hope to empower you too.
Okay, now that you've all have a very quick introduction to what SoftMark is basically all about, okay, I'll just share with you our journey and then how exactly have our college been using SoftMark for our own internal exams. Okay, so basically how our journey started is actually we heard about this from an FHAT who was doing a short stint in another college. Okay, so he shared with us, and I think our team of teachers became very interested, okay, to actually try out this particular platform. Okay, but of course, among the interest, I think what was really greater was actually the fear of trying out a new platform. Okay, basically, you want to try out any platform, it is definitely a whole new process to get used to. And I think the greatest concern for a number of our teachers was basically the increased screen time. Okay, so despite all the reservations, okay, I think I'm quite grateful. My team of teachers are actually quite adventurous, so we were willing to try it out, and so we did. Okay, so the very first thing we did was to basically identify a small little test that we decided to try out, which is actually our very first weighted assessment. Okay, so to try out SoftMark, of course there are a number of things. You need to digitize the scripts. Okay, so obviously you will need to be able to do like your scan in the scripts. Okay, so imagine the original script has a staple corner, so you got to think about how to remove the staple, how to actually scan the scripts from there. Okay, and not just that, I think if you saw from the video itself, there are certain formats that your script has to be in. Okay, there is a certain, for example, ID box, because the SoftMark system needs to recognize, this script belongs to which students. So we had to prepare our students in terms of giving them a unique ID, such that the system can recognize it. Okay, and of course you saw from the video itself, there will be certain setups that needs to be done. Okay, so all these that I'm showing you is basically the setup that you need to do in the system itself. Okay, we also talked about just now about preparing the scripts, okay, and in addition, the scanning part. So now it's not just about collecting the papers, we also need to make sure they can be scanned. So for the pilot, we got the teachers to basically use the staff room photocopiers to actually do the scanning, okay, but we know that the photocopiers are not meant to do very heavy duty or high volume scanning, okay, but for the purpose of class tests where we don't have a lot of pages per script, I think it still worked fine. Okay. So from the pilot itself, okay, what were some of the challenges? Okay, of course, now instead of collecting papers and then you start marking, okay, so we have to actually take time to actually process the scripts first. You got to basically prepare them for scanning, you got to upload them, and we also had a lot of a new workflow basically. So how do we, who handles the script, who is doing the scanning, who is doing the uploading? Okay, so these are some of the challenges to iron out. Okay, but what are some of the things that we really appreciated? I think the teachers appreciated the ability to mark anytime, anywhere. So my teachers pointed out, hey, you marked at 1 a.m. in the morning. That is so embarrassing because they basically records down, what exactly you did at what stroke, at what timing. Okay, but I think the teachers were really glad that, there's no need to flip scripts, there's no need to carry scripts. I had teachers who are very happy marking on the MRT because no one can tell which school they are from. Okay, so all these are really the affordances that allowed us for digital marking. Okay, I also tell my teachers, right, you can lose your iPad, but you will not lose the scripts. Okay. Okay, so what are some of the benefits that we saw from actually using the soft mark? Okay, because of how the system works, okay, we find that it was a lot easier for us to mark by a single question. Okay, there's no need for us to flip pages, there's no need for us to locate, let's say I wanted my teachers to mark, let's say question 5, you don't have to go through the first 10 pages to reach that particular question. It can be set such that when the teacher gets the script, digitally, okay, the very first script, the very first page the teacher sees is basically that question that the teacher has to mark. Okay, you can go by a single question, you can go by, in fact, the teachers themselves can set how they want to mark the questions that's allocated to them, by parts or by the whole question. Okay, and there's also another thing on filtering and bookmarking. Okay, I'll show you guys, about the granular marking options first. Okay, so this is just how it kind of looks like in terms of the setting up the questions. Okay, you can see that we can actually set our own questions, and when I go mark, okay, I will go down to that page itself. Okay, I will only see those part questions that are set. Okay, there are also single questions here, which I'm not showing. Okay, so basically whatever part questions that you have set originally in the template, you can also just go to a single question and mark for the whole cohort for that part question only. Okay, there's also the part about filtering and bookmarking. Okay, for us, because we are a JC, so sometimes for exams, for tests, we have to mark like 3 classes. That's about 75 scripts, or the whole cohort about 500 scripts. Okay, sometimes we have certain issues with certain scripts. Instead of trying to put post-its and flag out the script itself, or sometimes you have a question on the script, you're scared you will forget, you have to put a post-it. Whereas for soft mark, what we can do is that we can actually leave comments, okay, that we can come back to very easily. We can also, search for certain part questions. After we finish marking, we find that we may have been too strict. I want to remark questions that didn't get a full marks. You can actually easily filter by the marks that has been allocated and come back to the question itself very easily. Okay, and I think one of the greatest thing that our teachers enjoyed is actually the flexibility of how we can adjust our mark schemes. Because through soft mark, essentially whatever scripts that you have marked, we can actually tell immediately by looking at the data, how many students have we marked so far, and based on the number of students that we have marked, how many students have been awarded a certain number of marks. So we can actually tell, is our mark scheme too tight? Do we need to relax it a bit more? Okay, and then we can actually adjust the mark scheme itself accordingly. Okay, so for that was just a weighted assessment. Okay, of course, for the promos, I have 500 over scripts. Each script, it's about 24 pages. I cannot be using the photocopying machine. I will need to stand there for at least 2 days. Okay, so we actually invested in a cutter and a scanner. Okay, so if you're keen to
go on it. Okay, you may want to invest in this. And we managed to optimize the workflow such that we take about 2.5 hours to process a whole cohort, about 500 to 700 students. Okay, this 2.5 hours was meant for 700 students, and each script is about 32 pages. Okay, so 2.5 hours to process everything to get it digitized once the exam ends. Okay. So what are the affordances actually, okay, for using this one here? Okay, just now I think the video talked about marking rubrics. Okay, what they showed you was like correct answer, correct method. Okay, whereas for us, I think we went a little bit beyond that. Okay, instead of telling correct answers, the student will know if you put a tick, the answer has to be correct. Okay, we went down to actually even calibrating or, deciding what we want to say in the rubrics. So what has changed for us is that, sometimes we want to explain to the student why you have a certain misconception, where exactly is the error. It is very difficult for a pen and paper marking to actually give a whole paragraph. I won't have time to do that. Nobody has. Okay, whereas for soft mark, you can actually type the whole paragraph out, and then you can drag and drop, and then the student can get the whole long explanation that you wanted to tell the students very easily, and it's easily replicable for a lot of students. Okay, the other thing that my teachers actually love to use is hotkeys. So I have all the teachers who do gaming, you can tell who they are. So I have students who don't put a single tick on any of the scripts. They just use hotkeys and put all the comments only. Okay, so isn't it like more informative? You tell them put a tick, you put a cross. Sometimes the students don't know where they got it right or wrong. Okay, but so for teachers who use a lot of hotkeys, everything is comments. So if they got it right, why did they get? What were the points they were looking for? If they got it wrong, where exactly is the error? Okay, and of course, the best thing that we really love is the data analytics. Okay, because what happens here is that every part question, okay, you can actually see how well it's being done. Okay, so this is just a very quick how it's like, overview of how our comments are like. So the student knows exactly where he or she got it right or wrong, so what was missing. Okay, and when you use all these rubrics, in fact the system can also count for you how many times have these rubrics been used. Okay, so what actually helps is that with all this data, it actually gives us teachers a lot more information, okay, such that when we actually eventually come to paper review, okay, if you know that students have done well, okay, I don't really need to spend time going through this. Based on the data, okay, I can actually look at what are the misconceptions that the students tend to have, and then I can spend my class time focusing on these misconceptions instead of trying to go through every single question. Okay. And then for the students themselves, I think what our students really love, I'm not too sure, but somehow nowadays our students, they are very private about their results. Okay, so when we release papers, right, like we mentioned just now, it's actually through email. So we do this way before we want to review the paper. So the students have their own time and space to actually look at their own results before that, such that when we go into class, the students are actually ready. They've already gotten over all the emotions already by then. Okay. And then, of course, the part about clarifications, okay, I think what the students are able to do is, just now I think the video showed, okay, they can actually leave comments, okay, and we realize that the students, when you allow them to leave comments, some of them will really be able to, articulate out better what exactly is the issue that they are facing, okay, what are they looking for, okay, whereas in a pen and paper format, our students tend to just say, can you help me to look at this question, full stop? And then, what exactly is the error? Okay, whereas with soft mark, we give them time to actually articulate what exactly they want us to look at. Okay, so how has this whole thing actually kind of changed for us? It's basically with physical scripts. I think for us, because every question has different markers. So every time when it comes to review, the stack of script has to be passed around to 5, 6, 7 different markers, which is actually very tedious. Okay, whereas with soft mark, if there's any comments for a particular question, it actually goes direct to the marker only. Okay, and then the marker can really engage with the students. Okay. Okay. So marking efficiency wise, okay, like I said, there's reusable feedback, okay, and then there's actually very easy corrections, okay, you can just edit the marks for that part question, there's no need to flip. Okay, I think some of the questions some of us have been wondering, or I have been asked this, okay, by the colleagues at SoftMark, okay, do you all save any time by doing digital marking? Okay, actually the honest answer is no. We actually spend a lot more time because we are spending time thinking about what is the rubrics we want to put into the SoftMark so that we can give students feedback. Okay, so what's the purpose of doing this? Okay, in fact, more time is spent, but if you think about it, the time is actually spent on quality work, okay, because we have to do more analysis, okay, whereas the time that so-called you save is basically you are spending less time on doing all the lower level works like, collating marks, okay, so you're actually spending more time on higher level analysis work, which is what I think we want AI to help us with. Okay, and of course, data management-wise, I think you can read the first point for yourself. I think the second point is what I really want to highlight is during PTM, my teachers are all very grateful because during PTM, they can easily take out the students' grade. Okay, I realize my students, when my parents or the students come and ask, Miss so-and-so, I don't do well in this, what can I do? Then the first thing they're like, I don't even know how you did for your exam. Okay, whereas now we have a repository of all their tests and exams, it's very easy for the teacher to, look back at the students' grades and then give them a more targeted feedback. Okay, last but not least, a very quick looking ahead. Okay, so we are actually trying this out. We haven't done anything, solid yet because we are still looking at how to configure bots. Okay, because the students now have their mark scripts. Okay, so the question for our students is then what can they do with their mark scripts? So for us, we're hoping to come up with a bot so that the students can actually interact or engage with the bot for the bot to tell them, what are the areas of improvement and how they can actually plan their revision out based on all their weaknesses. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. All right, do we have any questions for Diana right now? Okay, if not, thank you once again, Diana, for sharing your journey of using SoftMark. All right, we have now come to the last segment of our event, and that would be our fireside chat. Okay, so for this conversation, I would like to invite Associate Professor Ben Leong, Director of AICET and NUNS, to join us, as well as to invite Mr. Chia Hai Xiang back to the front. And we will have a discussion about some of the questions that you have, as well as what's surrounding the theme for today's session itself.
All right. Afternoon, everyone. Before we start, I would like to, I came very late because I was meeting at MOE. I'd like to thank Geraldine for leading the team to organize today's learning journey. Thank you very much. And Bernice for being a wonderful MC. Right, and of course my good friend Hai Xiang for the keynote, so that you can talk about SS, the principles, right, and then all the speakers. I think the speakers today were fabulous. I think I learned many things. So I'd like to thank everyone for the time and for you for being a great audience. Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, so thank you for joining us. And across today's sharing, we have seen many examples of educators using AI to support teaching and learning. So to begin, may I invite both of you to just share your thoughts on this question. As AI become more powerful, how do we design its use so that it deepens learning rather than weakens students' learning?
Wow. Do you have like 6 hours? So I mentioned a little bit about in my kind of keynote to talk a little bit about what is the necessary kind of pedagogical layer and understanding that as deliberate friction that we introduce into a learning process. I think that's quite fundamental, right? How to do that? Well, like I said already, you need to make sure that you have the right metrics in place, right? So fundamentally ask yourself, if you are designing a tool or a feature, what are you truly interested in? There is a difference between being interested in more users using versus whether the users are actually learning anything, right? If you can't understand the difference, then I think you need to sit down and think through to yourself, how am I going to sieve out that difference, right? Are your metrics then measuring actual learning rather than ease of use? Am I willing to use, or I'm happy to use this, or am I trying to reach more users and things like that, right? So I know it is very easy, because even in the state of EdTech research or education research nowadays, if you look at a lot of research, I would say probably 60 to 70% of the research actually doesn't ask about actual learning outcomes. Right, so I give you an example, right? If you ask the student, do you like this? I'm not saying that it's not important, but I'm saying that doesn't measure learning. Right? Do you find this easy to use? Do you find this enjoyable? This doesn't measure learning. It measures engagement, right? It measures happiness about that thing. And even if you observe it, right, behaviorally, kids are using more and things like that, that still doesn't measure learning. All right, and in a lot of cases, like I said already, there is evidence, right? There's research done in 2020, even before Gen AI came out, between active and passive learning, right? Whereby actually kids hate active learning, even though we are very clear that active learning actually produces better learning outcomes, right? They would rather sit there and listen to a passive lecture. And if you ask them, do you find that helpful? That's a lot more helpful than active learning. All right, I'll give you another example specific to rapid research that we are doing this cycle. There is a study that we have with regards to use of a chatbot, right, okay, in 2 experimental conditions versus static scaffolds, right? Static scaffolds means slides with the same content. Experimental 1 group goes through a chatbot that's well prompted and basically teaches you the same concept. And experimental 2 group actually goes through the same chatbot, but then there is deliberate fading, which means that half the time they're not allowed to use it, right? We tell them up front, right? You can only use it for half this time. Next half of the time, you can't use it, all right? True enough, E2, all right, highest learning that we see. But which ones do the students prefer? The slides, all right? It's a complete reverse, right? Okay, so it's very, very clear to us that overriding information, that basically there is this concern, right? And so I think you need to make sure that you have processes, you have experts in there, you have people that actually understand assessment, understand what you're trying to achieve for assessing learning, and you put that in place, right? Okay, to make sure that your application or your tool is actually serving the right goals, which is learning.
All right. Okay, so it turns out that for me in the recent times, I'm much more concerned about harm that AI may bring to our students. Okay, so for voice adult, I'm a real prof. I just survived 800 students last semester. So softmark actually I invented, not because I'm so clever, but because I feel pain. I think the JCs know this, but most of you may not know. If you have 800 students, my scripts are 40 kilograms. Okay, so I feel like Kong Jie that now. I have to go to exam hall with 2 suitcases, come back with 1. Last time we had integrated papers, now we split it 2 pieces. 1 exam paper, one question paper, and 1 answer script. So pay back less, scan less. Right, so the point is that, because I'm on the ground teaching, and the fact is that we've been seeing this decline. I mean, not very scientific because I feel it on the ground. What we've seen is that, okay, the good students are doing really well. I mean, actually, as teachers, we don't care, and the students will do well no matter what you throw at them, okay? But what we've seen, at least at the college level, is that I think the bottom, I don't know how much, but at least 30%, 40% they are now dropping. There's a recent paper that some Chinese have just published. I did last month. They kind of like, I'm not sure if you're aware, there's a big survey they did among all the high school students, 36,000, right? A very big survey, the Chinese, and they've seen the Gaokao for the students who use AI. I mean, it's dropped, okay? And actually, it's not just AI. I mean, before that, I think you know that the average IQ of human beings have been increasing every year for a very long time, until about 2010 or so. That coincides with Steve Jobs unveiling the iPhone, right? So I think that your most mobile phones has caused some amount of brain damage, and I suspect that LMs didn't help, right? So what is obviously true, and then to add to what Haisang says, it's also known that, you know, Socratic style reasoning, right? Means the same ask question, you ask back a question, right? You ask the students which one they prefer, give direct answer or Socratic style answer, they confirm like direct answer, right? So the problem for us as teachers is like, we are actually like doctors like that, right? We make the students do something that they don't like, but it's good for them, sort of thing, right? Okay. So the challenge now, I think as teachers, we should be more kind of aware of is really how do you prevent harm, right? And okay, so I will share you that I don't have an answer. I tell you what I try to do, right? For first lecture every year, I would, you know, tell the students like, you know, if you don't do homework through the AI, you won't learn. Come exam, you will die. And frankly, do they believe me? They believe me. I'm quite persuasive. They also know it's true. Okay, sorry, it doesn't help because they will still procrastinate, right? They will still not do homework. And then by the time the homework is due, they will throw to LM and do homework for them, and then they submit to you. They know it's bad for them, but they cannot help it. Then come exam, they die again. Right? So there is this very serious problem that it's not obvious what the answer is, because it is not. Okay, so you think, okay, our kids today are quite clever, as in they actually are not clueless. They actually know stuff, right? But the gap is between knowing what's the right thing to do and actually doing right there. Then you talked about this thing, right? Poor self-regulation, right? I don't think it's just Sec 1, Sec 2. I think they have poor self-regulation all the way to college one. Okay? And then you have to do a good job, because if you all do a poor job, right? I am the recipient of your product. Wow, then I have to suffer. Okay, so it's really important that your MOE K-12, you all do the right things, okay? And like I said, I don't have too much to say more than this. I really am concerned, because on the ground, we are seeing this problem. And sorry, let me highlight this. ChatGPT came out, what, 2022, 21? 2022, right? Sorry, it's not that long, but 3.5 years, okay? So the problem is that in this 3.5 years, the kids are really getting a bit more stupid, right? Now, imagine, your students now, you know, let's say they're exposed to the LMs from 10 years old, right? Then after they come to me, they are exposed to 8 years, die. Okay, so this is actually quite urgent, because I don't think it will get better. And the trouble now is that the more they are exposed, the more they stop thinking, and it's more thought to use AI to get answers quickly. I think the problem is going to get worse. So I think right now we need to figure out how to deal with this problem. And I don't have answers, but I hope you all agree. And I think that among the schools, you all should be thinking harder. And then the thing I want to highlight is that I'm very impressed by the pedagogy for your teachers today. Because I think the presenters today, they've demonstrated very strong pedagogy. So one of the issues about the LMs that came up was this. Last story, I'm not going to go home. I'll go to. Okay. 2 years ago, I think there was this young N2 teacher who was a primary school English teacher. So she was telling me very excitedly, oh no, now I have used AI to teach my students how to write composition. Okay, so she tells me, oh, now my students write very good compositions. No, it's not that bad, not bad. I mean, but you think about that, I mean, your students, your primary school kids cannot write, right? Now they use AI, they can write. Okay? No, so the point is this. I think in the enthusiasm for AI, what she didn't realize, she was not teaching the students how to write compositions. What do you think she's teaching them? She was teaching them prompt engineering, actually. Okay? No, sorry, not to say prompt engineering is not important. Okay? Many of the things they did today, actually requires prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is a sort of a skill. Okay? And it's quite an important skill somewhat, I know, for many contexts. But you must understand that as a teacher, you must have your fundamentals. Okay? You got your CPTD, got syllabus one, right? Got this thing called learning objectives, right? Learning outcomes. So the problem here is that I think this is a young teacher, so very enthusiastic. She forgot that the learning objectives for teaching how to write composition is not how to do prompt engineering. Okay? And exam doesn't help, right? So I think the core, my last statement is this. I think as teachers, there must be a greater focus on the fundamentals. Right? That means that you must keep in mind, then asking why, right? Very important. Why are you doing this? Okay? So the fact is that everything you do, you must keep in mind what are the learning objectives, and what are you doing, how does what you do with AI or technology actually contribute to making the learning more effective. The trouble, okay, somebody asked, how come we can teach? How come the students don't learn, right? Okay, let me tell you something. I'm a professor of computer networking. So my research is studying how to transmit information faster. The problem with communications is that it's unreliable. Okay, what the transmitter transmits and what's received is often not the same. Okay, so this is the point. Teaching is what we inflict on the students. Learning is what they actually, receive. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, both, for sharing your thoughts. I think it's true that teachers ultimately hold the key to ensuring that the use of AI is actually done in a very thoughtful manner so that we can preserve students' thinking, so that we don't really end up having a bunch of students who are really using the tool simply just to outsource their thinking and outsource their learning. All right, so to continue, we would like to just ask some questions that the audience have posted. And I've sieved through a couple of questions. Perhaps I would like both of you to also answer this very interesting one, where quite a number of the audience have asked about how can we help students become ethical users of AI? What is your thought on that?
Can I start first?
Yes.
I think start with helping the students become ethical first. Okay, this whole thing about AI, about cheating, okay, let me tell you, I need to rant, okay? No, because, okay, yeah, I know time, but sorry, indulge me. Okay, earlier this year, there's this scandal, right, about NTU, the students, okay, then the problem becomes like Prof's problem, like we need to set exams so the students cannot cheat, right? Yeah, but frankly, the problem is not with the assessments or the assignments. The problem is that the students are cheating, hello. I mean, so there's something funny going on whereby somehow the students cheating better with AI or cheating more with AI becomes AI's problem. So AI is not a problem. AI is a technology. The problem is cheating. Okay? And, they always say the old farts, right? Old people always think that young people no good, right? Okay? But this is not. I think I don't look it, but I just finished 20 years as prof last semester. Okay? 20 years already. Okay? Thank you. Okay. And he was my classmate. Okay. All right. Okay. But anyway, so the point is this. I have seen 20 years of students, and I think some of you have been around a while, right? There's something is gone wrong in terms of moral ethics. Okay. 20 years ago. Okay. Sorry. Let's be blunt. Cheating is not new, Hey, my first day as a teacher, they are plagiarizing homework, copying homework. All right. Usually some of you also copy homework when you're in school, right? Don't bluff, okay? But so plagiarism is not new. I tell you what's new. 20 years ago, when you catch them, and sometimes they're not very clever, they're still not very clever, okay? But 20 years when you catch them, 20 years ago when you catch them, you send a note, right? Wow, they're very scared. They're very apologetic one. They're actually sorry. Today you catch them, and sometimes it's very blatant. They copy so very stupid one. Frankly, they should be slapped for copying stupidly and not for copying. But nevertheless, you catch them, and it's obviously blatant copying. They will deny one, die deny. I mean, frankly, I have a situation whereby the thing you submit and the someone else submit is completely the same. Like the spacing is the same. You tell me you didn't copy. I'm like, No, and they will deny. And so the trouble is that they are actually not sorry. They are sorry they got caught. Okay? So before we talk about ethics of using AI, I think we sort out the ethics problem first. So that our students, first of all, don't copy. Right? And if they copy, they actually feel sorry for actually are apologetic. So I think if we don't fix this problem of general ethics and honesty and values, I think no hope lah. AI what values AI, right? All right, sorry. I ran. Thank you much.
Okay, right. I absolutely agree with Prof. Ben. I just want to say, perhaps just give a different angle, right? Okay, so when I was VP at Northlight at the time, I had a very interesting experience, right? Where, of course, a student saw $50 on the ground, picked out this $50, and kept it for themselves, right? Okay, and so of course, we then knew that this happened. Counseled the kid, why do you do this? It's not finders keepers. There's such a thing called, being honest about this and things like that. Then the child said something. This $50, right, will support my family for the entire week. Okay, I've got a young child, young sister, and basically we don't have food and things like that. So, I know it's wrong, right? Okay, but, it's in this situation, it's difficult for me to surrender it, right? Of course, it's $50 to us, right? Who maybe enough $50, not a problem returning it, right? And we call ourselves ethical, right? But for this child who is $50, it really is a functional survival thing. Doesn't mean that there's no such thing as ethics. It means that ethics and morality is something, especially since I'm in charge of, or we in MOE are in charge of K-12, how do we grow this ethical understanding? It is also our responsibility to create scenarios and situations whereby students can make correct choices, and they are actually put in situations whereby they can practice these correct choices easily. Okay? It is not just a simple matter of, let's teach, So if you are teaching, for example, maybe profiles of students that are maybe at the top, they do have the luxury of ethical choices and morality. It is by the time you reach, for example, university, it's correct for us to say, why are you embarrassed? But when you're trying to teach kids across the entire profile and younger children, you have to create those scenarios whereby they can make that right choice. And actually, just to answer a little bit about what we are thinking about at K-12, right, to deal with Prof. Ben's earlier question, how do we solve this problem? Right, okay, of kids, for example, using AI to cognitively offload cheating. It doesn't matter what systems you build, right? SLS can be built in all this guardrail thing. If nobody likes the SLS, very simple. And we have observed this happening in class. One of the RR research is that we are going to use some of the data from SLS to sort of guess or proxy how many of our students are using AI to cheat, even when they're completing SLS assignments. And preliminary data is quite high. It's not as high as the Chinese study, which is 80%. Okay, it's not as high as that, right? Okay, but it is quite high, right? Okay, so until I'm released to be able to release that data to you, otherwise I'm not going to tell you how many people. But it is high. So one of the objectives that we have to do, why we need to build AI systems, actually is to build AI systems that scaffolds progressively, so that when the kids do this at time, they don't come to a place whereby there's so much friction, where I have no AI use, no scaffolds, teachers are not helping me. So it's easy for me to go to my free ChatGPT, right? Okay, or go to my WhatsApp to get the answer, or go to Google to get my answer. I have to create EdTech tools that are good enough to progressively scaffold, to encourage our kids to take their medicine. Right? That means you give them medicine, but my medicine is not so bitter that I don't choose not to take it. But my medicine is maybe slightly sweeter, right? Enough for me to, and enough for me to digest, so that progressively I'm able to follow and use this particular scaffolded tools to actually learn progressively. So actually, we have a very important challenge. You also cannot say, wash my hands, I don't use.
Yeah.
All right? So it's no longer that already. Your design systems and the way you use AI must be in a way that actually compensates for this, what they call arrival technology, that is now available to every kid on their handphone. Okay? So this is something that is maybe useful to tie the two things together.
Thank you so much for both your sharing. I think it's very important for us to also take a step back and look at how, instead of asking how do we get students to become ethical users, perhaps as teachers we will need to look at it from a different perspective. How can we create an environment for students to develop ethics, values, honesty, so that they approach everything, not just the use of AI, but everything in their life with the right values. All right, so I think we are very mindful of the time. So perhaps we have one question from the audience. You can just approach, go to any of the mics over here, and then you can pose your question, and after your question, we can wrap up the session. Yes.
Hi, Eugene from Riverside Secondary. Thank you for your sharing. Just want to ask two questions. Number one is with regard to Gen AI being so powerful in terms of being able to solve novel math questions, breakthrough research and whatever. Subject literacy curriculum, is that something that we kind of need to change a little bit? And perhaps that balance between subject literacy versus AI literacy as well, knowing that our syllabus has limits. Second is about com science. Knowing that there's all the layoffs, Lazada, so and so forth. How important is com science actually? I mean, not to say anything about department, but just to understand for our students who might be interested, is com science something that I want to go into, or is it something else instead to build up some skills? Yeah, thank you.
You want to take the first one first?
Okay. Domain understanding is definitely even more important, all right? Okay, in an age where basically AI can actually do everything, all right? So we used to think that basically before AI became extremely powerful, that, oh, you know, a lot of the suggestions on the internet is, let's no longer do the lower level thinking anymore, right? Let's do evaluative thinking. There's no possibility to do higher order thinking without lower order thinking, all right? Okay, and so now you can't even assess that because the AI can do the higher order thinking better than you can do a higher order thinking as well, right? So fundamentally, I think there is that importance, right, to understand that, you know, for our children, we actually need to double down, you know, on domain skills. Now, that being said, right, okay, there are many ways in which I think we can, for example, use AI, right, to accelerate this process or to actually transform this process of actually learning these foundational skills. But we cannot skip this, right? And we need to have ways in which we can accurately assess student mastery of these particular lower level skills all the way to higher level skills, independent of the AI scaffolds and support. That's the other confusion that everybody has, right? Oh, because I need to teach kids how to use AI, so every time I will have a free, you know, use of AI, even during assessments, right? Okay, which doesn't actually measure, right, the difference between performance and learning, which is exactly what Prof. Ben was saying just now, right? The example of, oh, my kids can actually write a lot of good composition, but that's with AI. Have you tested them without AI? And you realize that actually there's usually a regression. The data is very clear, 17% regression. All right, okay, so I think this is something that is definitely important. How do we bring that in together with all the AI skills that we also still need to teach? That's what MOE is here to do, and that's what the teachers, unfortunately, are here to do. Yeah.
All right, so just to add to what Hassan said, I think the first thing that's important, okay, I don't want to belittle the work you do, but the K-12, frankly, is not about learning stuff, really, in my view, okay? Because what you really need to do, your jobs, is basically to teach the students how to learn. Okay, really. Because I mean, whatever you teach them is relatively shallow. Come to college, okay, when we need to prepare them for the job market, we teach one semester what you all will teach in 1 year or 1.5 years, really. That's the pace of learning. So one of the challenges you have for your students is that if they tuition too much, now CS for your information is still straight A's. So all my students have straight A's, but really cannot, some of them really cannot make it. I mean, I think they have got straight A's by tuitioning, right? So the trouble now is that for 2 years of A levels, you can tuition until you're A, But because we are teaching in one semester only 13 weeks, about the content you cover in 1 year, the students that don't learn how to learn, they will die, right? So you all have this struggle to help them get good results so they get into the course of choice. But then the trouble now is that they must come here and survive, okay? And to survive, they need to learn how to learn, okay? Now, then the other thing that's important to understand is that learning is like you can think of learning map, there's dependencies, there's simple things, there's harder things. You don't learn how to add things together, you cannot learn calculus. I mean, at least you cannot, right? So even though the calculators existed, I still have to learn how to add. But we are not that old, when we grew up, there were calculators already. Okay, but we still had to learn how to add, right? So the point now is that I think this is not different, right? So although AI can do many things, if the students don't go through the business of learning the simple things, the high level all things will have a problem. But the interesting thing is this, most of you have forgotten calculus, right? So the math teachers, right? Okay, so some things don't really need future. Okay, in the future one. So those things are not that most important. But the problem is that if they're going to go down, if your students are going to be mathematician, better make sure you learn all the math, all the addition, the calculus, learn properly, because that's the foundation for what they need in the future. So I guess some level you need to make sure the students are a little clever to understand some things they need. If they need in the future, they better learn very well. some things, like Chinese, they just have to pass, right? And maybe, don't know it's out to the Chinese teachers, but my point is that because our students have got finite mental space, right? The point is how much effort they put into learning also have to be clever in how they apportion the time. Okay, so I think that's it. Now, then on AI skills, unfortunately, I'm not so. There's something about prompt engineering, okay? But my sense about AI today is the same as Google from 10, 15 years ago, right? I mean, the time Google came out, but after a while, you figure out how to Google for stuff, right? So similarly, at some point, people will gradually learn to use Claude or whatever, or let's say, Microsoft Word. When I grew up, that time, there was no Word one, it's true. It was Word style, I don't know, Word perfect, right? Okay. So I'm not very young, okay? So the point is that, but after a while, you don't see people, I know Excel also, okay? So now, basically, people use Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and it's part of parcel of life law. So I think in the same way, I think the AI will become like that. So I don't think there's all these AI skills. Mostly these companies want to make money out of people who are desperate, okay? Now, the last thing about is really my domain. I don't think you want to comment, which is whether coding got future or not. Okay? It's true, okay? And you have to trust me and believe me that the answer to whether coding got future or not is the same as whether lawyering got future or not. Okay? It turns out, I don't know why people have this impression that you go to some boot camp, you can learn how to code and then make money. It's not so simple. Our students go through 4 years of pain to graduate a CS degree to actually become software engineer. Okay, and similarly, the lawyers do the same thing. They go through 4 years of law school, okay, to try to become a lawyer. But what you probably don't know is that there is a number of these lawyers that actually cannot make it. It means that they finish law school, they will not practice as a lawyer because they're not very good in their skills. Similarly, in software engineering and CS, right, it's a professional skill. There are a lot of people who get a CS degree but actually don't have the aptitude and they are not very good software engineers. Okay, and those people will be in trouble. Because the trouble now is that they will not have reached the level of skill needed to be useful. So the future is this. There are going to be fewer. Okay, so I'm also very close to the industry. Okay, I just spoke with the MD of Goldman Sachs who runs the tech part. I also know the C Group founders and the C Group people. I asked them how. Okay, so you would think that AI is so powerful, correct now? Then actually you need someone not so smart to do because you can tell AI to do, right? Okay, but you go and check. There are fewer jobs, but the jobs that remain, you think you get pay more or pay less? They pay more. Okay? Because the reality is this, now it is actually much harder to manage AI properly than to write the low-level code. Okay? So what's happening now is that the industry is shrinking. Okay? There are people losing jobs. But the ones that are remaining, then the worst ones are the AI people. The AI people are paid $1 million, really, all the AI guys. Okay, the ones that do the research AI, those in open AI, those in DeepMind. Yeah. So the trouble now is that the future, as with all professions, is that it's going to be increased inequality. Those who are good will get paid more and more. They have a lot of job offers. Okay, and unfortunately, that number will be a small segment. Okay, and the rest will have a hard time. So the question of whether your students should do coding or not, and for your own kids, you all got kids, right? You all worry about them having jobs, right? I hope. Okay. My advice to you as parents is that you should encourage your kids to learn, to study what they like. Okay. Teachers are different. Teachers, many of you are teaching what you learn in school, but most people on earth don't actually do what they learn in college, if they are college graduates. Right, so at some level, it doesn't matter what you study, right? So if your kids study something they like, okay, they are happier. Let me say, I think 30% of my CS students are very 痛苦, means in pain every day, because they come here because the parents think it's pays a lot of money last time, okay, now maybe not, but last time they talk about a lot of money, but actually it doesn't fit them. They struggle a lot. Okay, so it's very, and then when they grow up, probably they cannot find jobs also because they're not very good at it. They don't like it. They're very hard to be very good at it. So if the students are good at whatever, right, I think they will have a future. Okay, so the problem is how do you know they're good? So that's why exposure is not bad. So I'm not trying to sell O-level, A-level computing, but taking it is not a bad thing. It means that taking it doesn't translate to humongous advantage in college, frankly. It means that if they don't take it, come college and learn, if they can learn in college, they can still do well. But take it early, okay, we'll let them discover whether they're aptitude or not. Okay, if every day they struggle, I cannot get an A in A-level computing, O-level computing, then come college will die faster, right? And it's not a good thing. So I think computing, whether they learn coding, is not so much about the future career. It's more of an exploration of interest and aptitude. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And yeah, we are very mindful of the time because I do notice that some of you are anxiously looking at your watch. So thank you so much, Prof. Ben, as well as Hai Xiang, for the very insightful thoughts and sharing. And I hope that today's learning journey has given you practical ideas and fresh perspectives on how AI can be used meaningfully in teaching and learning. So on behalf of AICET, thank you very much for being here with us. Now, before we go, I would appreciate that you could give us some feedback on the event. So,
thank you.
Just before you go, if you could scan the QR code and give us your comments. Thank you.